Hello and welcome to Fresh Faced Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friend through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me, as always, is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
We'll make our garden grow, and that is a very obscure reference that I don't think anyone will get.
Okay, you know what? Explain it. Go ahead.
That is the finale to the musical Candide. It's a very pretty song. The music's all written by Leonard Bernstein, so
Very
it's
cool.
a very pretty musical that people should check out because it's actually good and
Nice.
interesting.
Awesome. Well, anyway, today we're doing something very significant for this podcast. We are finishing the Scott Snyder Batman run.
It feels so weird. It
Right?
feels
Doesn't
weird
it?
to be like.
I mean, we've had it finished for a couple days now, obviously, before the recording, but like, it feels weird. It feels really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to have like an entire run, this being basically the capstone. Now, we're not covering Volume 10 on the podcast because it's. I've read Volume 10 after reading 8 and 9.
And
It's.
I'm sure you will attest. You don't need it.
you, you don't need most of it. I would argue.
Maybe like one issue, but I believe there was an issue that issue that we're thinking of like was delayed in publishing, and that's why it wasn't included in Volume 9.
Yeah, which is very possible, but I'd also argue 51 is just a very nice final capstone to some of the ideas as an actual epilogue.
I guess. The only thing that really intrigues me, and I forget what issue it's in, I'm pretty sure it's 51, is the whole Court of Owls wrap up.
Yeah,
in there.
That's basically it.
As you can tell, I didn't bother rereading epilogue before this, so you don't need it. But yeah, today we're talking about volumes 8 and 9 of the Scott Snyder Batman run. This is Superheavy and Bloom. Or really it's just all Superheavy. Like it's a big 10-part story called Superheavy, and we just had to come up with a title for the second one. So
I mean, I get why the second half is called Bloom.
Oh yeah. But anyway, what is Superheavy and Bloom about, Jacob?
Okay, so quickly, spoilers for the end of Batman Endgame. Batman has been missing, and the Gotham City Police Department has decided we are going to spend millions of dollars on several giant mech bat suits and have a new Batman be Commissioner Jim Gordon. And that's ostensibly the premise. It's actually kind of hard to talk about the premise because Snyder is doing a lot of things here. And a lot of things in basically 10 issues. To basically wrap up a run. Wrap up sort of the new 52 era of Batman. As well as introducing one final sort of villain, because this is perhaps the most super-powered point of Snyder's run. Because if you notice...
Well, I would consider that Endgame personally. Because I think Bloom still really taps into that Court of Owls, like, supernatural side of Scott Snyder's Batman run.
Yeah, but this one has, like, actual superpowered characters. One of the conceit is, if everyone becomes a superhero, no one will be a superhero. Because
you know what's really interesting about this though is that like for a while it was considered a spoiler as to like the identity of the new Batman in this. When they were first like revealing this new version of Batman to take Bruce's place. When now I would say it's probably the most well-known thing about this last arc of the run.
I mean, it's the one thing that I knew about it going in, is that Jim Gordon becomes Batman and does a very interesting job of it. Like,
like, and we'll talk about it a fair bit in the non-spoiler section, which we're currently in now, I guess.
Yeah,
I keep forgetting in these episodes to start calling out our non-spoiler section at the start. I just assume that people know that it's the non-spoiler section at the start.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so like it's I lost my train of thought. Fuck me. What was I in the middle of saying?
About Jim Gordon being Batman as a spoiler?
Oh yeah, as a spoiler. No, genuinely, I was going somewhere else with that, but I can't remember what it was. Um, oh yeah, yeah. With our Twitter questions, like there were like there were a couple of people like asking about specifically the Jim Gordon plot of all this. So there's some interesting stuff to talk about here, like in our non-spoiler section, that I think we can delve into a
Yeah.
fair bit
I
before we
mean,
actually talk about spoilers.
what's also fascinating, right, is that the focus of this is very split. Um,
Yeah,
Almost so much
it's
that the
it's interesting because I'm assuming you're talking about the split between our two main characters here,
our
but
two main
that's the
characters.
spoilery part of it. Is our second main character in this? So,
Yeah, which I won't
yeah,
spoil yet,
we'll refrain from talking about it until we're actually in our spoiler section.
but
Um,
it's also just fascinating is the way it's structured, um, as well as just a lot of the ideas Snyder is finally wrapping up. It feels like Snyder doesn't want doesn't want to have sort of almost a definitive like ending to his run.
mhm.
Um,
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of the theme of this last leg of the run is the fact that Snyder is very well aware that he will not be the last Batman writer ever. You know, he's not going to write issue 50 of this run and be done with everything, and then like Batman just stops. So it's about understanding that comics are, as we've talked about on this podcast many times, comics are like soap operas. They have to keep resetting, they have to keep restoring the status quo every couple of years.
Yet
So
I
it's about
think
it's about understanding that and doing it in a really tactful way that also works towards the themes of this entire run and the themes of this story in particular, and Jim Gordon as a character, what he's going through here, that I can't wait to talk about in spoilers when we actually get there.
and what's interesting is on that note, what's especially interesting is that Snyder, despite there being sort of a status quo reset, it's not. Snyder understands that the status quo reset it doesn't necessarily want to be a complete reset. It's still reflect on what's happened, but let's keep moving forward. And I really hope I and I don't even want you to hint at me about what happens. I really hope because I know Tom King is the writer immediately after Snyder.
Mhm.
He has a run. I hope King is smart enough to take some to take the changes and keep them in mind going forward.
Mm.
Because I think it's important. I hope he does. I really hope he does.
Mm.
Um, but I have
There,
no
I
frame
will
of
say
reference.
there's a fair I without spoiling anything, or without even really like telling you much at all. There is a fair bit of reflection towards the start and throughout most of King's run in its entirety. Um, yeah, there's a fair bit of reflection on like Bruce as a character and where he's at that time
Yeah,
post Bloom. So yeah, should we get into some Twitter questions?
yeah.
or I
Let's.
guess we've been starting off on Discord questions anymore. Um, our first one comes from a mutual server that we're on. Comes from O9 Phil J. Says, why is Gordon's bat suit so figure hugging? I mean, I think not enough Batman stories call out the physique of Jim Gordon, and I think it should be done more often.
I
So
was gonna say it's because he's a United States Marine.
yeah, exactly. Why would you not let it be figure hugging? I don't know. Um, but yeah, I guess our second sort of Discord question comes from our friend Andrew, who will actually, spoilers, be a guest on our next episode.
On the
So
next episode, which I'm
yeah.
very excited
So
for.
so Andrew asks, do you think the common criticisms of this story are warranted, and do you think the new villain has potential beyond this story? So here's the thing: I don't think I actually know the common criticisms of this story. Oddly enough,
Neither. I don't
I
know.
mean, I don't know. I mean, I would assume if I were to guess, it's very different from a lot of the rest of the Snyder run.
Oh, it's
Um,
it's it's a different beast entirely, and
but
that's per.
I don't think any of the main five arcs of the Snyder run are very similar to each other. Personally,
Well, I'd argue.
there's a style. There's a style that's consistent throughout all five, but I don't think the stories are ever retreading anything that's like consistent throughout these five stories. They make a really nice connective tissue, and they tell one nice story altogether. Um, but no, I don't think. Sorry,
I'd
go ahead.
argue because I have a couple of criticisms. I think that Superheavy is the one time I think Snyder struggles just slightly to find his feet. Um, in ending things with
Hmm.
the ideas, being, explored here. And I think that is perhaps why, for me, this is probably the weakest Snyder stuff that we've covered.
That's
Though
interesting.
though the weakest part of the Snyder run overall, oddly enough, is Graveyard Shift, aka the in between stuff, and the
Yeah.
stuff that's directly tying in to um to other stuff. But like, it's still, like, this arc is still brilliant. It's still Scott Snyder
Yeah.
writing,
Hmm.
um,
And
and
he always crushes it, like no matter what.
he sticks a
Um,
landing. It's just not quite as perfect as everything that's come before it. At least in my opinion.
Interesting.
Um,
But I guess more on that later. On Andrew's second question, though, about the villain of this story having potential outside of this, I think, I mean, we could say the name of the villain, right? It's not a spoiler. Bloom.
yeah,
Okay, yeah. Bloom.
Bloom.
Bloom has appeared in, I think, two other things outside of this, actually.
Really?
Yeah. One of which is an alternate universe thing that Snyder wrote with Capullo. It's that Last Night on Earth thing. Um,
Ah,
and then the other, Bloom recently appeared in a thing called Task Force Z, which is like zombie Suicide Squad, basically.
okay.
I haven't read it. I don't know how he's used there, but he's in it, so I don't know. Um,
See, I think I would be perfectly content for Bloom to be a one and done villain
hmm.
in just this arc.
I think
Um,
one could also say that about Snyder's other big original creation from his run, Court of Owls, but also as we've seen in DC's continued use of them, they have story potential outside of that one arc.
yeah, I see. I'd argue Bloom has less, mainly because Bloom as a character is kind of a Lovecraftian horror. Like,
Well, true, but I think that's the thing that makes Bloom so fascinating. And again, more on this in spoilers, but like the idea behind Bloom is that Bloom can be anything. Bloom can come from anywhere. Um, I think you saying that he's confined to this one story and this one idea kind of goes against the very idea of the character.
it might be because you would need a very intelligent writer who knows exactly what they're doing to make it work and not feel like not either reveal too much, because part of the thing about this villain is that this villain is just Bloom, um, or not just retreading the ground that Superheavy already went through.
Yeah. Now, actually, going over to proper turtle questions, though, our friend Kian at Kian the Cork says DC changing up the status quo in a unique way. I'm sure this will last. How right you are. Kian then says, "Okay, but in all seriousness, it's a shame that this idea didn't last longer because Jim makes such an interesting choice to have the mantle of Batman." I agree. I agree. But also, as I mentioned, a lot of this story is about understanding the nature of comics and why this can't and I would personally say shouldn't last. Um, there's a very there's a particular character defining moment for Gordon towards the end of this run that I think really nails why he doesn't last longer than he does as Batman.
Yeah,
And I don't think that's a spoiler to say is that he's not here forever.
he's not here forever.
Yeah.
I think it could have been interesting to see Gordon as Batman more. Um,
True.
there
Well, that's the really cool thing is actually at the time they were having Gordon as Batman pop up in a couple other titles. I know at the time I was reading Red Hood Arsenal and he popped up there. They let Gordon as Batman be like a bigger presence than just in these 10 issues.
Okay, because there are a couple of odd things. Oddly enough, there's a character here who it almost feels like she was forgotten about in certain ways, especially in the first half. Um,
Understood.
just because like she just doesn't serve a purpose in the back half. Nearly as much. It's weird, but she could have been fleshed out. Um, Interestingly, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that the Bat family really isn't in this arc,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which is, I don't want to say wrong,
I mean, I
but
think it makes sense.
it, but it's definitely an interesting choice.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, and it makes sense, why Snyder would perhaps, not have the Bat family here. If the Bat family were here, the story itself probably wouldn't necessarily work as well because there are other heroes to deal with Gotham. Um, whereas, a lot of this, oddly enough, is Jim Gordon on his own, and being kind of isolated. Sort of an interesting theme of isolation kind of crops up um, in very interesting ways, as well as some themes of almost selfishness.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
like this is an interesting book.
Yeah.
Um,
Our next question comes from our friend Kellogg at _ Kellogg. Says, not a question. I just really like Jim Gordon Batman. And yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a again, and it's just a super interesting choice, and we'll get into particularly why in spoilers. But yeah, it's I don't know. The mantle of the bat has been passed on to other people many times throughout Batman history, and for some reason, it's never been done with Jim Gordon. And there's a reason as to why. There is, but it's really interesting that it happens the way it does here.
yes.
So yeah. Next up, Jamie at Jamie_season 7 says, obviously you two won't have heard of it, but there's a British kids show called Mr. Bloom's Nursery, and it's all I can think about when I read this part of the run. I have not looked into this since we got this question submitted, and I was kind of hoping that I would have by now, but I have not. So this is me unprepared. Jacob,
Yeah.
anything to
I
add?
I sadly don't. Sorry, Jamie.
Sorry, Jamie. Thank you for the submission. um, all right. Who should we do last, Mason or English?
Let's do English last. Let's do some chaos first.
All right, Mason. Our friend Mason at the GD256 says has 4 questions for us. One, what is the most underrated material for a bench?
Mahogany.
2, what superpower would you choose if you knew you would blow up after 30 minutes of using it?
Uh, X-ray vision, just because I'd like to be able to see out of both eyes.
I would choose the ability to not blow up.
Uh, I don't think, but I think that superpower goes away after 30 minutes.
Well, no. That way I can counteract the blowing up after 30 minutes.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah, so I get around this loop, this trick question here.
This okay.
Yeah. Number 3, have you heard of the ship of Theseus? Haha, I made you guys reference a podcast you've not heard. Um, sorry. I mean, I'm well aware of your constant referencing to the ship of Theseus, Mason.
I understand the thought experiment of the ship of Theseus. I
As do
don't know,
I.
though.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're referencing. What podcast are you referencing?
Actually, yeah, Mason, this question goes back to you, bitch. Fucking tell us on Twitter. Tell us what podcast this is from, because clearly I don't know, and I'm not going to look it up because I'm too lazy to look it up. Then Mason says, extra long DLC 4th question that I may have asked before, but I don't know. Which actors would you cast as the main players of this story? You may use actors who have played the characters before. Now, here's the thing. Are we talking about a live action adaptation or an animated adaptation?
That's a good question.
Because I can think of some phenomenal voice actors for Bloom, if this is animated.
I want to know who you want for an animated Bloom.
And if we're talking an animated Bloom, you could throw a lot of really great people in there. I think because he's played a Batman villain before, and I kind of want to hear his take on this, but maybe not as like deep and gruff and psychotic as he would normally do it. I would love to hear a Robert Englund take on this.
You know,
Yeah, I think that could be really fun. But
who I
also,
think
but
could
Bloom also
do
kind of
it.
goes all over the place. You could have some moments of like just really like screechy, loud, psychotic shit, and then get really light and airy with the voice. You could play around with that a lot.
You know who I think could do it? Taliesin Jaffe. I
You know
think
what? You are absolutely right.
I think Taliesin Jaffe has the range.
Is this the first episode we're recording since my Critical Role rabbit hole?
I think it's the second, but it's the first time we've mentioned it. Yeah, so Joey's been pushed down the Critical Role rabbit hole.
It's true. It's absolutely true, and it's wonderful. I'm loving it. I'm currently, I just finished the Briarwoods arc, so
Yeah.
that's
So,
it's pretty great. So, anyway, and who else? Like if we're talking like animated adaptations, I mean, if I had the ability to get Conroy, I would.
yeah,
Or,
I
or
mean,
Bob Hastings for that matter.
God, Bob Hastings is Gordon doing this with
Dude, Bob
Conroy.
Hastings doing this story would be so fucking good, dude. Oh my god, I just what a treasure. I love him
And of
so
course,
much.
okay, so it's not a spoiler that there is a Joker cameo because the Joker's in.
Ooh, you gotta find. You know who would nail this if we're choosing from pre-existing Joker actors? Cameron Monaghan.
Ooh,
because
ooh.
because he's done not Joker
He
before.
he could do it. He could do it.
He could. Um.
Um, I mean,
Anyway.
I would
Uh.
I would
Sorry. Go on.
also. Who would you pick for Julie Madison? Because I think
Mm.
like she's a character who's never really been adapted outside of
Except for
Batman and
except for that one. I
Robin,
was gonna say except for that one time in
which I
Batman and
don't
Robin.
remember if that we should count that because it's been a while since I've.
It absolutely counts. It's just not good. But also, Julia Madison was not a character, but really, before Scott Snyder made her a character, in my opinion.
I mean, she was what Bruce's first girlfriend in like the golden age.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Um,
I,
I don't know. I don't know who
I'm
I'd cast.
sorry, but the golden age and writing women is rarely like allowed to be an actual character.
Mm, yeah. um. Anyway, let's get to our last set of questions. English Giraffe at English_Giraffe says, "Who is the most underrated Batman villain, and why is it Mr. Bloom?" I love Mr. Bloom so much. He's just, he's so good. Um,
What's actually quite fascinating is when I read these, even if it's like a character I don't have any familiarity with, some sort of voice will like pop into my head somewhere, like not necessarily like an actor, but sometimes just like a cadence or something. With Bloom, it was all over the place.
oh
Like
yeah,
I was just like
that's why I said that earlier because I was like Bloom could have a lot of different types of voices for different scenarios. You know.
like
Um,
and I think that's part of the point. Part of the point is just this really disorient. A lot of this story is meant to be disorienting and to feel just a little bit off.
mhm.
Like there is an issue. It's a late issue. Actually, there are a couple of issues here where it's not Greg Capullo on art, and those issues both feel off in very different ways, but both very good ways.
The Jock
Uh,
one in particular really
yes,
nails that sort of surrealist feel of. I mean, of that issue, that whole issue is surrealist, but it's very very interesting. Um, he then says, "How do you feel about Alfred's characterization in this, and by extension, Scott's run as a whole?" Um, this is one of my favorite Alfred stories ever, so I think it's pretty telling what I think of his characterization in this. Um, Overall, throughout this whole run, Alfred's been kind of a punching bag for the most part.
I'd
He's
argue. I'd argue
he.
this is where Alfred gets the most tragic
Oh yeah,
because of
I
what
mean,
he has to see happen.
yeah. It's one of my favorite moments ever in the whole run. It, it is a shame that it's from an issue not drawn by Greg Capullo. But it's I mean just his characterization in that issue in particular. I know you know what I'm talking about.
I know
It's
exactly what you're talking
yeah,
about.
it's fucking tragic. I love it. But yeah, Snyder's run as a whole, Alfred has mostly taken a back seat, other than I would say in like Zero Year. Um,
Yeah.
and also,
Well,
I do like his characterization in Endgame too. But
yeah.
that sort of goes hand in hand with this story.
He's
Um,
never poorly characterized. He's just also isn't the focus. He becomes more the
yeah,
focus
I
as
th-
as
I
as
think
we
it's
isolate
I
away
think
from
it's
the Bat family.
I think especially of like Death of the Family when he's like taken out of the story really early on and comes back at the end as like a zombie. You know, it's like okay, sure, that's fine, I guess. Um, and then last question here says, how do you feel that Jim spent enough time in the Batman mantle, or would you have liked a few more arcs? I think it's the perfect amount of time, personally.
I think maybe I think maybe an extra issue or two.
Huh,
Like just early on. Um
just to do more like regular stories with him.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, there are more like regular stories with him crossing over into other titles, but
I'd
but
also
no,
kind of
I
like
get
to
what you mean.
see the first issue of this arc because it's like one of those little like mini stories in a different book as a tease, expanded a little bit. Um,
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I guess that about does it for questions. And anything else to add before moving to spoilers?
uh, not particularly. I mean, if you have if you haven't gotten this book or you haven't even read any of Snyder's run, do it. It has been like amazing. Like most of the run has made it into like my top 10 stories that we've read for the podcast.
I love that.
Um,
I love that so
and
much.
And most of them are like they are mostly still there. Um,
How does it
uh,
feel also to have chronicled like an entire like 5 year period of Batman history here?
Utterly fascinating, and mainly because it's a 5 year period that only wavers ever so slightly right at the end, and not even that much of wavering. Like
Hmm.
it stays so solid.
Yeah.
Um, like I have a feeling Snyder had a plan and knew how to execute the plan. Um,
Hmm.
and also probably didn't have to deal with the mess that was DC editorial at the time because of the new 52. Like like
Mostly. Yeah, you're right. I mean, he did have to adhere to like certain things, but a lot of things because he was writing one of their flagship titles at the time. He dictated a lot of where the new 52 went, so something like Zero Year, which ties into a bunch of other titles at the time, is run by him entirely. Like he doesn't have to worry too much about DC editorial in that particular case. But
and he was given a full 52-week Batman miniseries.
mhm.
Like or year
I
long.
I I also firmly believe that if it were up to Snyder, he would have kept Bruce dead. And if because you could tell that Snyder wants to do something very definitive here, but as I mentioned, is very aware of the nature of comics and wants to work the entire story of this arc into that fact, and wants to make that a central theme of the story he's telling here. So
Yeah.
yeah, and also just one last round of applause before we get into spoilers for fucking Greg Capullo,
Greg Capullo.
who
Ooh.
has been so much of my love behind this run throughout the years. It's a very particular visual style. He draws my definitive Bruce Wayne personally. Just when I picture comic book Bruce Wayne, his Bruce is the face that I imagine. It's so good. He really is amazing, and yeah, him and Snyder worked so well together on this run. All right. If you
All
haven't
right.
read these stories, there will be links to their Amazon listings down in the description below. You can go check those out. I'll leave both of those there, as well as the book that we'll be reading next time. If you want to find out what that is,
Yes.
be sure to stick around to the end of the episode. I mean, based on what I've said earlier, you could probably guess what it is. But hey,
Yes.
just
But
he'll be there.
and it's a thing that I already know what's coming, but I don't know what's coming after that. So
Indeed, indeed. So, all right, spoiler time. Let's finish this shit up.
let's start.
Starting off in Super Heavy, in the DC Sneak Peek Batman #1. I honestly don't know what else was included in this at the time because
Um,
it's a really small story.
I looked it up. There
Um,
was like a Superman story and like something else. It was really weird. Uh, It was like an anthology release, I guess, showing off like what's immediately happening.
huh.
Um, which is what's kind
What?
of weird is it's not like a sort of a big preview of like, oh, this is what's coming down X amount of months away. No, it's like this is coming next month, basically. Like
So weird.
like immediately the next month this was starting.
Hmm.
Um and you can okay. I love so well, okay, sadly there's no like cover to the issue because it's just a short story that kind of
Hmm.
acts as a prologue of setting up the premise.
Yeah.
Um uh but you have this narration, about sort of the approach of Batman, and it quotes the Batman 66 theme song.
Yes.
Um
It's so
um
good.
but Snyder still takes the time to have some emotion of immediately showing like Gotham City is like in mourning for Batman.
Yeah.
He is gone. The city is relapsing into crime. The Joker is also missing, and somehow Wayne Enterprises has been taken over by Power International. And
Specifically a woman named Jerry Powers, um,
yes.
who I think is kind of like your biggest problem with this story as a whole, isn't she?
Oh, she is a big issue. I don't know if Snyder like was setting something up to be her, even to be her as like a red herring, maybe.
Very possibly. That
Like she just for a character who is like the bankroll behind the new Batman. and like in charge outside of exactly one thing in this first half of the story. She doesn't do much.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and that's genuinely a shame because there could be something there. Because so this is like like we're already established as a capitalistic police sanctioned Batman, which
Mhm.
should be some terrifying words, and
Oh, absolutely.
Snyder
I
does
mean,
make
even
it terrifying.
yeah, even Gordon is really off put by this idea. You know, he doesn't even necessarily want the mantle. Um, which again, we get a lot of questions about Gordon's time as Batman and the amount of time that he spends as Batman. Like from the get, he doesn't want to do it. Like they make that very apparent. Um, but here we are. We have Gordon inside his giant mech suit. I have to ask what you think of the design.
So
This,
it's very Scott Snyder. I think Scott Snyder just likes mechs.
He
Like
does. He very much does. This is a design that caught a lot of flack at the time. I remember people calling it the bunny suit.
it does
Um,
look a bit like a bunny.
I kind of get
Um,
that. Yeah.
but also like I think part of the point is that it's not supposed to look like Batman because like this is people taking the mantle of the Batman without permission.
Yeah.
Like which I think is interesting because Snyder so because I mean we're in spoilers. So eventually Bruce Wayne comes back. Snyder doesn't have Bruce get angry once he knows it's Gordon.
Hmm.
Whereas I feel like, well, or sort of he kind of knows it's Gordon from the off because the, Gordon doesn't really have a secret identity
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because he's the commission the police commissioner.
Hmm.
Um,
On that, actually, though, I do think Snyder has always nailed the relationship between Bruce and Gordon.
oh, he
Um,
has.
Specifically Bruce and Gordon, not like Batman and Gordon. I mean, like Bruce and Gordon's relationship. I think specifically to Zero Year, where he did how he did it there. I think that's reflected really well here. Um, yeah, I guess actually getting into Batman 41. Um, so something I know you didn't expect because it's teased on the first page here
Yeah,
is how immediate the return of Bruce Wayne is.
yeah, yeah. It's sort of the wraparound of this first issue. Um, Starting with a very interesting sort of monologue. Um, that's kind
As
of
Snyder does so well. That's one of the things when I think of the style of the Snyder run, I always think of these just long opening monologues that open these ominous pages and then tie into like just the singular story being told in a single issue of this run. I don't know. That's one of the things I always think of when I think of Snyder's run.
yeah, it's fascinating. Especially okay, so like this whole thing, bringing back the idea of chemical elements that may hold crazy powers is interesting. Partially because like at the time this was initially publishing, uh, the sort of the scientific community was trying to isolate these chemical elements that are basically they're essentially man-made flash elements. They only exist for like a tiny amount of a second, but they do exist and are theoretical. It's a whole field of chemistry that is fascinating and complex, and I'm not going to go full nerd here,
I appreciate it.
but it. But my point is that sort of the way Snyder uses it here reminds me of the H.P. Lovecraft story, The Color Out of Space, um,
Mm.
which is so. H.P. Lovecraft was terrified of the idea that there might be colors that we cannot see because of the light isn't just the visual spectrum.
Hmm.
So like he wrote the story, The Color Out of Space, out of basically about a mysterious color that light switch that no one can see and it infects everything and leads to some eldritch horror. I love that like Snyder's basically doing that with these elements because like we then immediately see the GCPD fighting a new villain who is essentially an elemental, like a classic elemental of lightning,
Hmm.
um, which is okay. I also FCO's colors.
Oh yeah, I mean they've always been great, but I love them here especially because of the kind of characters that we're playing around with here. It just looks so nice here. Also, we get to look at what the new sort of bat signal is like in for Gordon and this police sanctioned Batman,
It is
which
a
is
blimp.
it comes from a blimp. The bat signal shines down on whoever it's going after.
And
Um,
that's just a terrifying, ominous image that feels wrong, right?
well, that's the thing
Like
is this whole thing is meant to feel wrong. This isn't right. This isn't Batman. Gordon knows this isn't Batman, but he knows he has to do it. Um, very important messaging here. But
yeah.
yeah, fight breaks out between the two of them. We go to a flashback then to 3 months earlier when Gordon is first being shown this Batman replacement program. They're training police officers to be the next Batman. And Jerry Powers is like showing him how this is all going to work. She essentially wants him to do it because you know, I love this scene here. How it goes is like we look at all these different like cops here that Gordon it knows, and he's like, oh yeah, this guy's good. He's quick. This guy's strong. This guy's smart. These guys could all be Batman. They'd all probably be better than me, but none of them are Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon is just the right person for this.
Yes.
I just really appreciate that. I really love that idea.
We
But
also have Julia Pennyworth working incognito as Julia Perry,
yes,
which
yeah.
I found Julia's plot here fascinating because it
Mhm.
feels like there's this unspoken tension between her and Alfred.
Yeah.
Like they don't really share any scenes throughout this, but there's this unspoken tension that she does not approve of what Alfred has done, which will be revealed much later
Yeah.
because there is something Alfred has done here, um, which is again just a fascinating character work. Um, the action is very nice. Um, I find it fascinating as well that it's both Bullock and one of the potential Batman that can basically convince Gordon to do it, um,
Mhm.
as well as this idea. Um, it doesn't quite come up here. It comes up a little later of actually some really interesting characterization about Harvey Bullock and his game nights. Um,
Mhm.
which is a very interesting thing. Seeing the world through Gordon's eyes is just
Mhm. Oh yeah,
perfect.
making Gordon a perspective character is something that Batman comics don't do often enough, in my opinion. Because Gordon is so fascinating as just as a person. And Snyder really knows how to tap into that here.
Yes. Um, and this is all intercut with some genuinely great action.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of the
Mostly involving just like Gordon getting used to this whole thing. You get the feeling this is one of like his first times out in the field. He doesn't quite know what he's doing yet, and he's still learning things as he goes along. And I just really like that. Um, we go back to another flashback when like Gordon is being shown the suit. I'm assuming this directly ties into the DC preview. I'm guessing this is meant to take place like right after that, pretty
it
much.
must or right before it maybe.
Right before, yeah, because he doesn't have his hair cut yet.
Yeah.
But he's seeing this. We also meet Daryl Gutierrez, or no, oh
Yeah.
yeah, Daryl Gutierrez, who become very important later. But I really like his role in the story later on. But I
Yeah.
like this. It's a funny little scene where where we show up like the different color settings that this suit can have, and they're meant to be like homages to a bunch of other bat suits. I'm assuming this one in the four panels here in the top left is meant to be it looks like the Ben Affleck suit actually.
Oh, it must.
Um,
I mean, it has the Ben
because
Affleck logo on it.
yeah, because Batman v Superman was coming out at the time, which is fun. Because
Yeah.
actually, I think what is it? Is it this collection or is it Bloom that has
It's
all the Bats v Supes variant covers at the moment?
it's Bloom that has the Batman v Superman variant covers.
I love
Um,
it. We have a nice '70s suit there. We have the Zeranar suit. We have the Zero Year suit. It's very fun.
um,
Do you know Zeranar? I don't actually know if you do.
all I know is that it's a Silver Age thing that eventually became a Grant Morrison thing.
Hmm. Cool.
Um,
Which we will eventually cover, I'm sure.
oh,
Uh,
I'm sure we'll be doing the Morrison run at some point.
you know
Uh,
it.
um,
um, but I love it.
okay.
like starting to like close out the fight here, I um I love this moment where you reveal the more like the actual like suit beneath the mech. Um, where you see like more like how Gordon is Batman, like physically and how he acts physically.
It's a
Um,
very thin suit, like
very thin suit, as from our Twitter questions, very form fitting, you know. Um, and it has, I believe, it's a batarang gun, isn't it?
yeah,
I love it. It shoots batarang. So
batarangs that are also tasers.
yeah, very fun
Um,
idea. I like that
very
a lot.
fun, but very militarized police.
Oh,
Um,
definitely. Yeah.
I also think I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, obviously, I'd argue it's the suit is also meant to be so form fitting because it's meant to contrast like our actual bat suit and just
Hmm.
look so different that you would never think this is Bruce Wayne as Batman.
Hmm.
Um,
I mean, you can tell it's meant to be more of more of like a stealth suit. Like you can tell like Snyder and Capullo like put a lot of thought into like how this whole thing works on a logistics level. You know,
yeah,
like how would this actually work if this existed? What would you use these different things for? I just really
yeah,
like that.
and there's a reason. There's a reason that for this story, Snyder's using mainly a mech suit as well because again, a lot of this is meant to be a comment sort of on the issues with the police in general being kind of totally corrupt
Hmm.
and unsavable, but done very subtly.
Yeah.
Um, so much so that that we pretty much end the issue's story proper um, of finding out that sort of the police have isolated Gordon into his own sort of apartment as a cave, um, and sort of giving him his own space. This idea where he has to train, um, and you
We end the issue
see.
on a really great cliffhanger. Then actually, that I
Well,
love.
well, first you see that Harvey has has basically just left him a note in his old trench coat. And we're reflecting on this idea of really what the hell has Gordon done? And then we have the final page, which is a real kick in the teeth.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so casual too. It's just that shot of the bench from the beginning of the issue. This guy walks by and just looks over at the guy sitting on the bench, and he's just like, Bruce
Bruce
Wayne,
Wayne?
and that's just the end of the issue. It's so casual, but you're like, wait, what? Fuck, what?
Wait, Bruce
And I
what?
got, and like, obviously, nobody's fooled. Everyone knows Bruce is coming back eventually. But I gotta wonder, what were your personal theories when you read that for the first time? How do
Uh,
you think? How did you think they were bringing back Bruce Wayne?
so part of me thought maybe this is a flash forward.
Okay.
Just because I'm like, it's been one issue.
Yeah.
Like that is record time. Um, um, I I thought my guess was I was able to guess at least amnesia, though not necessarily the most. I wasn't the way he eventually comes back as Batman was not what I was expecting
Oh,
at all.
certainly not. And it's that wonderful thing that the Snyder Run has always done, where it's like it's this very ground level, very base detective story for the most part. And then Snyder's also doing this really crazy high tech shit that's part of the larger DC universe.
And then
Um,
in a couple issues time, there's actually a really interesting red herring that I know I discussed with you when I was reading it about like sort of what Snyder might be implying very
mhm.
subtly. That ends up not being true, but like is a really interesting idea
Yeah,
um, as sort of a potential. But we'll
yeah.
get to that when we get
Moving
to
on
it.
to Batman number 42 then. I like the way this one opens because this is where we get our first actual. I mean, first of all, I love this first page with the Batman and Gordon Batman action figures, but that's fun. But no, the actual first scene here is our first actual like proper scene with Gordon and Julia together. Um, and you can already see that Gordon's pretty aware that Julia isn't exactly what she seems here.
Yeah,
Um,
that's something's off.
Also,
Um,
we see that Gordon is wearing Batman nicotine patches, which I just find really
yes.
funny. um, we also
Um,
see Gordon's Batmobile for the first time, which is gigantic.
and it's like it's a truck, it's a
Yep.
tank, it's a
Giant truck.
mobile
It's not
headquarters.
even it's not even a tank. It's just a really big fucking car. um yeah, it's just really fun. But yeah, so we send Gordon out on this mission here to fight a garbage monster. um or at least
Someone
his
who controls the sewage. And what I think is kind of interesting is like there's this undercurrent of gangs um sort of taking over the city and getting superpowers. Um and they don't ever get like fully explained, but they have these like little devil horns on them, and it's very interesting and very weird, and kind of just like this other thing that turns out to only be like one part of what the actual like plan is.
Mhm.
um because we don't reveal who the actual big villain of the arc is until the next issue,
Yeah.
really.
Mhm.
um and it's kind of an interesting comment of just how something so dangerous can almost seep in quickly, because you're not thinking about it like as it happens. Like
Mhm.
this is an issue that's almost trying to be a normal Batman villain fight, but just with this new idea. Of course, the wraparound being um kids playing with toys, and like the toy gym Batman is like an imposter. Also, a merchandising Batman just feels like something the GCPD would do, like
Mhm.
um, for kids.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Um, we also get this great. It is a flashback, I'm assuming, right? They didn't actually specify that it is, but I'm assuming it is. Either
it's a
that or
brief flashback.
yeah.
Uh,
Where we start investigating these seeds that we're finding in these victims of people that like have these powers and are dying. Um, and it's got this little like sunflower on it, but it's not a sunflower seed. It's just a seed with a sunflower on it.
uh,
And I find it interesting that actually we don't specify how these seeds exist, like physically in the way that they do. I just kind of like the idea that like it's not, they don't tell us if it's like if the sunflower is like engraved on it or if it's like painted on it or what it is. I don't know. It's a small detail that I really like. Um, that like you don't know if it comes like naturally that way. It's just, I don't know, just a cool idea. Um,
yeah, and
that I'm glad they don't explore.
we have this idea of these gang members being given these seeds and then dying of massive amounts of radiation very quickly,
Hmm.
um, which is quite scary. Um, and this whole idea of like, oh, this is gonna be your first supervillain, Jim. Because we see then just this lineup of bodies. Like there are four bodies in a line, all dead. Um, all of them basically having connections to organized crime in Gotham. Um, Again, bringing sort of back not supervillains, but really the crime. Like
Yeah.
there aren't really any established Batman villains who act as villains in this story arc, and I think that's a very smart decision. Um, like not there's not even like there's Arkham Breakout and the annual issue having Mister Freeze. Like this is just Jim and this entity of
Hmm.
Mister Blue,
Yeah.
and we have Jim Gordon getting some payback, sort of taking it out on Maggie Sawyer, disappearing halfway through a conversation.
Also,
Um,
Maggie Sawyer's here.
yeah, she is now Commissioner Maggie Sawyer of the GCPD now that Gordon is Batman.
Nice
Um,
as that.
it's very nice. It's very
Yeah.
nice. I kind of wish she appeared in it a little bit more, because again,
Yeah.
so, some things from this first half kind of just phase their way out, and like I get it. It's why I think maybe one more issue somewhere would have helped make these elements feel a bit more like an actual like a more cohesive story with a little bit more wrap up. It's a minor quibble. Um but yeah, after that we go back to the fight. And Gordon struggles. Like
Yeah. It's we're still seeing him like get like a handle on all of this. Eventually, I love the way we resolve this because it's not your typical like Batman way of solving things. Gordon's doing it his way. He basically slams his Batmobile from the sky onto the guy controlling the sewage here. And
Yeah,
it's a really fun idea. I don't know, just like that. We go up to him afterwards. We get our first mention of Mr. Bloom, saying he's growing a whole garden of us. Um, and then he dies. Then he gasps. He dies there, and then um, later on, because this we're no longer in flashback land, right? Yeah, okay, yeah. Later on,
right.
we meet up with Julia again, and Gordon confronts her finally about the fact that like he knows that she knew Batman. Um, and we get this really nice line here. I'll read it out. She says, I didn't work with him long, but what I came to understand was he never cared about what Batman meant. I mean, he did, but not in the way you do. Batman was simply him, his code. He just did what he thought was right, and what Batman stood for grew out of that. You worry about Batman meaning something to people, you'll go down fast. But if you stop and just be you, Jim, if you do it your way, the things you believe in, the things you stand for, Batman will stand for those too. Which I find really important. And again tying into where Gordon ends this whole story, I think, is what makes that moment really significant for me. But anyway, we then
And
go over to what is this place actually? Like, what is the
so
actual
it's
name
sort
of
of
this
an
place?
it's sort of a like a civil center for like kids to stay at. They give it a name, but I don't remember what it is.
But basically, the
Uh,
idea is that like they stay there. Like it's because a lot of places were destroyed during the Joker Endgame attack. Um, so it's sort of like this safe haven for them. Duke
and
Thomas has been staying here because his parents are kind of fucking crazy right now.
yeah. Um,
And we see Bruce Wayne. We see he's helping out here. He has a girlfriend now. His girlfriend is Julie Madison, who we saw
and
back in Zero Year. And
I love this first two pages of this scene because okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. Duke knows Bruce is Batman, right? Like
uh, honestly,
it feels like
rereading rereading this, I kind of forget, to be
I
honest.
think he does. It's heavily implied that he
I believe so,
does.
though. Yeah, I believe you're right.
Um, because he and like you have this moment of Duke being like basically like I really Duke wants to tell Bruce that he's Batman and make it work, but he can't, so he's isolating himself in very
Mhm.
interesting ways. He gets a great plot. Um, but I also just love this idea of Bruce Wayne, despite having no memory, deciding, okay, I'm actually gonna get down on the ground and help these kids after, the city's fallen apart.
Mhm.
Um, and doing it the best way that he can.
Yeah. And then Bruce gets a visitor, and it's where we end the issue. His visitor is one Jim Gordon, who says, "It's simple. I'm Batman, and we need to talk."
And
It's a
for
great
almost again
ending
for
here.
almost a moment because you have Gordon in silhouette, hello Bruce, you almost think is this how the Joker's gonna be back in this?
Oh, yeah, you're right, because he kind of has that. The haircut's almost similar. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I had not caught on to that. That's great.
yeah,
Um,
it's a tiny little bait and switch because
I think that's also really fun because I know I've told you that the Joker appears somehow in every single one of Scott Snyder's Batman arcs.
he's there
Um,
and he's somewhere. And at this point, like I imagine for the month to month readers, it's already kind of been planted in your mind that if Bruce is alive, that means the Joker has to be alive too.
yeah,
So,
exactly. They died together. They've got to come back
where is he
together.
gonna be?
And
And
once again,
obviously, if you
oh, sorry, go ahead.
reintroduce Bruce at the end of issue one, well, as you get to the end of issue two, it would only make sense to reintroduce the Joker, and then
Hmm.
you don't.
You don't, yeah. They're holding that off, and he is here. He does come back eventually, and I think it's one of my favorite Joker scenes ever. Um, but we'll get to that. It's so important. And once again, just continuing that idea that Scott Snyder has always played with it. Like Batman and Joker are just intrinsically linked, no matter what they do. They will always be one and the same. They will always be together. Um, so yeah, just great stuff. Anyway, all right, issue 43. Let's meet Mr. Bloom. Look at that cover. Oh, that's fucking
Okay, the
beautiful.
cover is terrifying, and then the first page just unnerved the hell out of me.
And the first page also reflects Death of the Family. The way that last issue opens with the bat flying towards the
Yeah.
thing. Yep. Oh my god. So good. Once again, just that connection between Batman and Joker. So good. Um but
Uh,
anyway.
and what's
So
interesting, what's interesting is that Mr. Bloom just kind of he doesn't like. It's weird. Like your typical superhero story would like build up your villain to do a big villain reveal, but Mr. Bloom as a character just kind of, and this is for the best, just kind of shows up. Like
yeah.
you
Well,
have his
it's
name, and
yeah.
then you have this page of just the flower, which is a horrific image because it's a flower then with thorns in its center. Um, and it isn't like it doesn't really get explained. A lot of things
Yeah.
don't get explained.
And I
Um,
would love to, if I could just talk. We're only just meeting him, but I want to talk about Bloom here because I know I've mentioned it to you before, and I said it a little bit earlier on the podcast. But Bloom, the idea behind his character is that he can be anyone. He can pop up anywhere. He's meant to be the anti-Joker in this way that he's this perfect villain for Gordon. Batman and the Joker are these two individuals fated to meet no matter what. They will always spawn each other. Whereas Bloom, as Gordon is Batman, Gordon is your everyday cop. Gordon is the guy that takes up Batman as because he needs to. Bloom is that natural enemy to Gordon because Bloom can be anyone. Bloom can be anyone screwed over by the system, be it Gotham, be it the police system. Um, I love that idea so much because Bloom can be anything, and that's the
it,
truly terrifying thing about it.
I kind of read it as sort of an allegory for the rot of the police and sort of the rot of the system,
Oh, definitely.
especially with the way this issue ends. That line of the funny thing about weeds, we're not so easy to kill, and we grow very very fast. Just how the corruption and the evil spoils even the best of intentions and just spreads itself out. But a little more on that when we actually get to him because this Bruce Gordon scene is fucking amazing. Like, ooh, I this may be like the most dialogue in a Scott Snyder comic we've had. Um,
Right. Yeah, yeah, it's but it's a very important scene. um I wonder. I think I almost every truly great contemporary Batman writer has always kind of just thrown in that little idea that maybe somewhere deep down Gordon knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. um
yeah,
you get a little hint of that here, just maybe.
yeah. And what's
um
interesting about the New 52, because one thing I do know about, sort of like that's been alluded to, is the idea of Batman Incorporated being funded by Bruce Wayne.
mhm.
Um, so like, there's this idea. It adds to sort of that extra layer of cover of like, does he know Bruce is Batman, or does he just think Bruce works with Batman? But like, I think I think Gordon knows, not ever necessarily consciously, outside of some very specific stories, like the end of year one. Um, but he knows subconsciously like that Bruce has to be Batman. Um, like he understands it. Um,
Mhm.
and I find it I find it fascinating that Gordon is going to Bruce for help, and Bruce just can't give the help because Bruce genuinely does not know Mr. Bloom. Like
Yeah,
like Mr.
there's
Bloom
no
is
way
a
that
new threat.
Bruce as he exists right now can actually help with this.
I'd even argue Bruce as Batman wouldn't be able to help with who Mr. Bloom is.
Mhm. Which
Bruce
again
as he is,
is that thing that makes Bloom the perfect villain for Gordon.
yeah. And I like throughout all of this, Bruce Wayne is a very scared man. He's scarred and kind of scared. Um, if you look at the way Pulo draws his eyes, um, they are much lighter than than the way Capullo's drawn his eyes in previous volumes.
Yeah, they're
Um,
very unsure.
yeah,
Like,
kind of
yeah.
reflecting that. And Capullo's eyes are great, and Julie being there as sort of this rock, um, is also really important.
Hmm. I also just love the idea of the Bruce Julie relationship playing directly on the ending of Zero Year, where the idea was that if Bruce were not Batman, that would be his life. And here we have a world where Bruce is not Batman, and this is his life. Um,
Yet he's still doing something good.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, because Bruce, contrary to popular belief, Bruce does actually try to help Gotham City, and this would be the
yeah,
case even if he didn't wear a bat suit at night.
yes. I mean,
So
that whole Twitter drama is, I think, more a problem of some of the live action Batman films, just in
oh,
general.
definitely. I think we've even talked about this from our very
Yeah,
first Snyder episode in
yeah,
Court of Owls. Like it's a very non-argument if you ever read an actual Batman comic. So
yes.
yeah.
But
Anyway,
yeah,
holy shit, enough on this scene. Let's go over and meet one Clark Kent, who
who is
I'm sure you.
outside the Lucius Fox Center for Gotham Use? That's what it's called.
That's it.
Um, I was like, Clark's here.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mhm.
Um,
And it's probably the best Clark was ever characterized in the New 52. Um, but anyway, Alfred is taking Clark to see Bruce, or at least outside of the center, so that Clark can just use his superpowers to see Bruce. But Alfred then tells Clark what happened, or at least as much as Alfred's willing to tell at this time, um, which is that we found Bruce in the wreckage. He was alive. Um, uh he was oh they were taking the bodies out of the wreckage from the Joker attack, and apparently they were zipping Bruce up in a body bag, and then he just woke up,
woke up.
um which is fascinating. We take Clark back to the Batcave. We show him a scan of Bruce's brain, and it's not the Bruce brain that Clark knows. um
Yeah.
and it's
So
a really fascinating idea.
that was where I kind of got the idea of, what if somehow the Joker found a way to like infect Bruce somehow?
Which is an
Uh,
interesting idea, but I don't think any of this story is actually about carrying on the direct plot of Endgame. It's more about carrying on the themes of Endgame. Um,
yeah.
so, anyway, more on that later. But we continue these flashbacks, and we see, like, after everything happened, Alfred, despite the fact that he didn't want to, started to tell Bruce about his life before and wanted to, like, get those memories back. Bruce woke up with amnesia. He doesn't know who he is, and Alfred is just willing to tell him. And Bruce denies this knowledge, just as Alfred is about to start telling him about Batman. Um,
The
and
idea being that Bruce kind of has a chance to not feel the trauma of the loss of his parents.
mhm. He's aware of it. He's aware that his parents are dead. He's aware that an older version of him was very troubled by this. But in a way, being able to separate himself from that trauma will be able to help Bruce as a person, which is an idea we've also covered before on the podcast, is that Bruce living in that moment, living in that body of that scared child in an alleyway, is what keeps him from ever having a normal life. And so now he's able to do that. Now he's able to not live in that alleyway for eternity, and he has an opportunity to be a normal person, or at least as close to a normal person as Bruce Wayne can be. Um, so I just love that idea. But also, we get a really fun little Alfred moment here where he just holds a kryptonite ring up for Clark, which I find kind of funny. But no, it's meant to illustrate a point. The idea is that, like, he takes away Clark's powers momentarily to show him what it would be like, for Bruce to be without Batman. It would be like Clark without his powers. Um, just a really cool scene there that I enjoy.
Yeah. And
Um,
then we get this idea of the machine.
the machine. Go ahead and explain the machine, Jacob.
So, okay, how do I explain this? Because this is truly. It's. Okay. It's a machine that would create a clone of Batman at age 27 of Bruce Wayne, instill it with all of those memories and pieces of fighting prowess. And it was something that Bruce was apparently working towards.
Mm-hmm.
I I don't know how I feel about the machine. Okay? Like,
I mean, it's that idea that Bruce was always prepared. You know,
yeah.
Bruce is dedicated to the idea of there always being a Batman, to there always being a protector for Gotham, um, and he wants that idea to live on. So I don't hate it. I'm kind of glad it doesn't really exist outside of this story. Um, no one's ever really taken this idea any further than Super Heavy
I
and
like the
Bloom.
idea of maybe it just being used as a MacGuffin to get Bruce's memories back, and then he destroys it because he realizes, ooh, I can't do that to I make okay. The idea of him making clones of himself feel just to be Batman feels really unethical and just
Yeah.
doesn't feel right for the character.
Hmm.
Um, like it just feels wrong.
I get that. I still don't hate it myself, but I understand it. So moving on. We go over to Jim Gordon, who is investigating the Bloom deaths. Some more. Uh,
At
Actually,
this,
a typical Snyder action-heavy sequence where he's investigating. He's ambushed by more Bloom's men. These people that are being infected by Bloom's seeds,
yeah, this is actually a drug hatchery where smuggled fish are the drug runners.
which is
Um,
really fun.
yeah, and then Mr. Bloom just shows up for a moment.
Hmm.
Um, before the action actually starts. Um, and
You know what? Actually, something just really hit me about the cover of this issue with him standing in the field like that. Like it's because you talked already about how Bloom just kind of shows up in this story. You know, he doesn't. There's no big build up to him. And I love that idea of him being the anti-Joker. That Joker is always sort of like hiding in the shadows, and you do always do like a big build up to a Joker story. Where like Bloom, they just openly present you to him in a wide open field, sun on his face, and he's just and it's even creepier for that. The fact that he's just there and you feel like he's always been there because of that, you know?
and of course his design in general has just this uncanny valley feel
Yeah.
of like being faceless.
Hmm.
Like there's
It's both human and monstrous, isn't it? Because the face and just the thinness of the character is feels very unnatural, but also there's an idea even on just this cover here where you see like there is like there's that part in between his pants and his shirt that like you can see that, oh, there's a person under there. There's a thing that exists. He's wearing normal clothes. Um
but he doesn't have a face. And
yeah,
he um he's drawn by mainly Capullo through all this. I think Yannick Paquette does get a little bit of him in the issue
a
that
little
Paquette.
bit, but Capullo's really tapping into his horror roots here with this one.
Yeah.
Um
And neither of them ever give him like any sort of discerning human facial features. Like you don't see a nose, you don't see eyes through that mask. You see a chin, but it's hard to draw a head without a chin.
mhm.
So like it just it adds to just how off-putting like all of this is. Um and you have this. What's interesting is also you have this idea with the Clark and Alfred scene of Alfred basically saying, "All right, Clark, take everything to the furnace. I'm burying Batman. Batman will no longer like Bruce Wayne will no longer be Batman." Um, which is Al- Alfred making the decision of a father who's just seen his son have an out for the horror and pain that he's been suffering for the last 70 years, basically.
Mhm.
Um, and taking it immediately.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have this action scene of Gordon eventually finding himself basically in a furnace.
Yep.
In the
Meanwhile,
end,
Julia is attacked. She's knocked out, and as all this is
Duke
happening, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Duke Thomas steals the seed.
Yes, yeah. Duke starts taking things into his own hands, which I really like. Um, and then Bloom has a meeting with the Penguin of all people and his men. And I love this scene so much because first off, you really see how monstrous Bloom is in this moment, but also he pretty much kills Penguin, sort of. It's
Yeah,
he's not actually dead, obviously, but like I love how horrifying that scene is.
it's also just one of Penguin's men shoots Bloom point blank in the face.
Yeah,
Um, and it's this idea of like he's gonna have the boys burn the body, but like just this thing comes out of his hand, kills all of his men, and stabs the Penguin, and that's where we end the issue. It's
yeah, and Bloom also then like literally grows in size, like. Ugh.
and
And
you're
we're
just
not going to
asking,
pick up with that for a whole issue yet. Because then we go into Batman 44, which is a flashback issue. We go immediately post Zero Year. And this issue is drawn by Jock, who we've seen art from before in this run, back in the backup stories to Death of the Family. Um,
yes,
and also in
um,
the backup stories is Zero Year, right?
yes,
He did that as
he's
well, yeah.
pretty much
Um,
all pretty much. If there's a backup, it's probably been Jock on the art.
yeah.
Um,
Which, once again, just Jock's art style is very horror and tapping into just that side of the run that Snyder and Capullo have always done so well.
yeah,
Anyway, so this is a flashback issue, as I mentioned. Um, there's actually, as much as I really enjoy it, there's not too much to talk about here, in my opinion. Uh,
there's not a lot of plot, but it's very important then to see where Bruce and Gordon came from and sort of this idea of the rise of the supervillains. Um, but this is also just kind of an issue about the cycle of violence and how it propagates. Um, in a lot of ways, because there's this sort of there's this kid, um, who um Oswald Cobblepot. Because yeah, this is kind of technically a Penguin story. Um,
um,
Oswald,
who
uh,
was involved in like the Penguins gang? This kid is dead. We follow a lot of this issues just like tracing it back to just like how far back this kid went, how deep into this he got, and at the end of the day, the issue as a whole is about what Mr. Bloom's idea is about is the failure of the system and how it affects normal everyday people.
and
Um,
how I mean, and Snyder is very aware that the normal everyday people it affects are generally the already marginalized and already minorities. Like this is
mhm,
focusing in on a kid whose father had cancer, and during the 0 year, essentially was trying to survive, and then so just eventually, got in deep with criminals and ended up dead because of it.
mhm. I
Sort
also
of
love
a
that. I also love that even though this is a flashback issue, the fact that we're following Bruce Wayne suddenly, I don't think feels off because different artists, so there's already that sort of disconnect from the feel of the rest of the story. But also, it's not necessarily about Bruce. It's not about Batman. It's about an old case that Bruce worked, but it's about the origins of Bloom as a character and the systemic issues that led to Bloom's creation.
well, it's also Snyder laying out here's kind of my point with this. This is the point that I'm going for. And I think it's a point that perhaps some people would I don't want to say get lost on. Um, because what's interesting is what I always like about Snyder is that he doesn't ever come out right out and say it, but but he knows how to actually tell a story, so you know exactly what he's talking about.
Absolutely, yeah,
Um, and Jacques' art is perfect for a story like this.
yeah.
Uh, uh, like we had one of sort of the haunting things um is is sort of Bruce asks Alfred, what did you find? Bad things for one. The kid Peter, he went to the gang unit for help, and they blew him off, and I got a name on the bullets. Nothing good. Just
Mm.
this, and there are these newspaper captions that are sprinkled throughout.
Hmm.
It's
Work really well with the art style here too. Um, Yeah, just really great stuff. I personally don't have too much more to add on this. Just a really strong, almost a story that could stand on its own, but of course, is also doing something for the larger super heavy story. Um, but yeah, just really great stuff. I love this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost this just sort of just the failure of the system and Batman's failure overall. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, like he wasn't able to save this kid. We do end on an almost interesting note of Batman, you know, the next time going out and finding kids, he doesn't try to scare them. He sits and he tries just to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we don't like see an outcome of that, but we don't need to.
Yeah, because
It's
you can see how this particular case changes Bruce as a character.
yeah,
Um,
it's just this
yeah.
great little issue. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that
But
some I don't
anyway,
think
oh
would
sorry, go ahead.
get. I just don't think
Yeah,
some would get because it's some might say it stops the story dead, where it's like, nah, it doesn't.
yeah,
Story
it really works. Um,
anyway.
On to 45, though. Batman 45, which is where the cover of this collection comes from. Which I don't know. I always really like this cover. It kind of shows that disconnect between Gordon and the mech suit. And also, I like
Yeah,
just a fun little action pose. He's got the Batarang gun and a cigarette in his mouth as he's trying to quit smoking. Just funny. Um, yeah, great stuff. Anyway, getting into this one. Picking up pretty much exactly where we left off. Gordon in the incinerator, working his way out of there, fighting off more of Bloom's men. The mech suit breaking in. It's a cool action sequence.
realizing that he has to do something amazing as Batman
Mhm,
to get out of this situation that would kill any normal man, but he is Batman. Um, and he demands to know where's Bloom, um, before the suit comes in. Um, and we find out that the suit technically has an automated program that can
mhm.
so it can drive itself.
Which
Uh,
again is horrifying, but looks kind of cool to be honest. um, yeah, just great stuff. And also, it I don't know. A lot of great things could come from this. But again, the big thing being that just it's it's that idea that it doesn't feel quite right. Nothing about this should feel right. Um, yeah, more on that mostly in the next volume. But moving on, we go to another one of these sites from the Joker Endgame attacks. Uh,
and
we oh sorry, go ahead.
we see Bruce basically trying to take this wreckage and do something with it because it's all wreckage. Um, and like we find out like the kids are terrified of this stuff because they think someone's gonna try to basically do what the Joker did with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Bruce has it into his head, right? I need to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we also find out um here about Julie Madison's father. Um, we start getting hints um, that her father was a bad man, and we'll find out what this means later, because it's a fascinating connection to Bruce.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But anyway, moving on. We we had a great Bloom attack moment. I love the way these, I guess like Bloom's fingers are done. So they're just these
yeah,
little like needle like things that kill people almost instantly because they could just pierce you so quickly. It's just a really scary idea because it allows Capullo to draw the pages so simply, and you could just see the changes in these characters. It's these two guards standing next to each other, and one of Bloom's like needle fingers goes through the both of them at the same time, and it kills them instantly. And it's just, really scary stuff. I love it.
yeah.
Um, we then catch back up with Gordon and Jerry Powers. Um, in first off, I just love the setting of this one with the giant periodic table on the floor.
Yeah, which is like because this is supposed to be like going to be sort of an exhibit with a large hadron collider, and we find out that Jerry is going to fire him, like, and it's going to make Gordon announce the successor. And this is sort of the problem with Jerry Powers as a character, is that we haven't had nearly enough buildup of her to this moment. Like,
Yeah, I do agree with that. I do like this story a lot more than I suppose you and apparently a lot of other people do.
well, here's
Um,
the thing: I really like it. It's this first half is a 9 out of 10. The second half is a 9.5 out of 10. It's really, really good. It's not quite as good as everything else that Snyder had done. Um, which, because of the sheer quality of Snyder, makes it sound like I'm complaining more than I actually am.
fair enough. Fair enough.
Um,
Um, we then catch up with Duke Thomas again and Daryl Gutierrez. Um, we learn that they like know each other already, presumably through the system that Duke was in before. Um, and we see we get the build up here. Also, once again, if DC editorial were not DC editorial, you can see already what Snyder really wanted to do with Duke as a character
oh, what
because
he
because
really, really wanted
because
to
he
do.
straight up has a Robin symbol with him that he's gonna wear, and
Yeah,
I love it. Oh God, I mean, Duke is still part of the Bat family officially nowadays, you know, but he's not a Robin, and I kind of wish he was.
he would have been what, the sixth Robin, technically,
Um,
in
yeah,
continuity?
yeah.
Because
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
because Stephanie counts.
yeah,
Yeah.
because Stephanie counts, even
Mhm.
if she didn't exist technically at the beginning of the New 52, because they deleted her from existence and then brought her back.
Honestly,
Uh,
this is this is a very controversial take, but I prefer where Stephanie's at now than pre 52 personally. But
that's
you know,
I need to I need, we just need to read stuff with Stephanie
we
eventually.
will, but I just know it's a massive hot take for a lot of people. And same with Cassandra Cain for that matter. But
Yeah.
anyway,
But
but yeah,
yeah,
so I do
like
that scene.
Duke is going to investigate on his own, which is what he does to the next volume.
Yeah,
And then we see
how
this.
once again we're helping the kids that were affected by all this by the endgame attacks. We've repurposed the giant dinosaur that Joker had in it. First off, he's painted like Barney, which I only just noticed now, and now I can't get out of my head. But it's a really nice scene. Bruce and Julie have done something really nice here, and it's great to see. Well, Bruce in particular. But
Yeah,
anyway, we then go to our sort of press meeting here, where Jerry is meant to announce that Gordon is stepping down from the mantle of the Bat, um, and they are attacked then by Bloom and associates. Well, mostly just Bloom. Well, yeah, Bloom can kill them all himself. Who am I kidding?
yeah,
And that is where we end Super Heavy.
yeah. And it's such a fascinating ending because like this firing plot after this is dropped basically. Like
Yeah, a lot of the Jerry Power stuff is dropped after this.
yeah, which is honestly kind of a shame because you could have done something interesting with her and given her more than just to do than just being a boss. Because
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
she is kind of just like, I am the girl boss who is here to, show to tell Gordon no, he can't.
I'm
Um,
gonna edit a panel of Jerry Powers, and it's just gonna say, "I am the girl boss."
I am the girl boss. Um,
um,
yeah, that's
I'll-
what's kind of the shame.
yeah. But anyway, let's get into Bloom. The final 5 issues here. Ah, so good.
What's
Number
fascinating is that this is like a thicker volume.
It is.
Um,
It is. I mean, most of the issues, I think all the issues in both of these collections are more than your average length issue.
yeah, but like this is a thicker volume partially because there are so many variant covers
Yeah,
because Batman v Superman.
that and also issue 50 is pretty long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's
Anyway,
also Detective
um,
27,
yeah.
which
Which question do we even need to cover?
I think we should, but
We
very
we
briefly.
can talk about it briefly, I guess. All right, on to 46, picking up exactly where we left off. Um, Bloom attacking the press conference, and Batman, this being Jim Gordon, coming in to stop all this, which is nice. But also, Gordon is getting his ass handed to him because he is not equipped to handle Bloom. Um,
Bloom is also cracking genuinely terrifying jokes throughout all of
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And also, I
and
just love. It's a couple pages in. I really love. It's kind of scaring me just looking at it. Oh my god, this really, really close up on Bloom's face. It's at the bottom of the one where he's hanging from the bat signal, um, and you get just that really close up on the inside of the flower on his face. Just
yeah,
that is fucking terrifying. I love that. Yeah, great stuff. Love it.
yeah. I mean, it's this whole idea of, but Bloom has this whole idea of the bat symbol having no power without the actual Batman. Um, and Gordon's like, right, I'm gonna make sure you go to Arkham. And Bloom cuts the power to the room basically and runs away. And it's fascinating because like just slipping through the fingers, knowing exactly what move to make because it's just not a predictable move. Um, and
um,
then
and
we
then
cut.
Greg Capullo gets to draw hot people, um,
Yes.
doing
Um,
hot people things. So, but no, important character moment actually, because we get more into the Julie's father, Mallory Madison, who's a gun runner and very likely, not confirmed, but very likely sold a gun to Joe Chill, specifically the gun that may or may not have killed Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Martha Way.
Um, which just
And
very important moment. That we learn that Bruce doesn't really care about because again, Bruce isn't connected to the trauma of that event in this life. And I find that just to be a very important aspect of this version of the character. Yeah, I
um
love it. Ugh.
and he asks her to marry him. And it's just like and they agree to it. And then they get to have steamy shower sex.
Yes, they do.
Um
You know what? It's an entire 2 pages of Greg Capullo drawing hot people, but you know what my favorite single panel on these 2 pages is? It's
what?
that first one of Julie buttoning the shirt. I just really like how that's done. It's just a
Well, it's
close up of
interesting
her. Just I don't know.
because
It's just
like
I like that.
oddly enough, ne- I guess you could argue maybe Bruce is kind of objectified, but Julie certainly isn't here. Like the way she's like, yeah, she's not wearing any pants, but like the way she's framed isn't to like show off her legs or anything.
Yeah, yeah. Like the very first panel, you see Bruce and he's completely naked, and only his lower torso is covered by the towel, which is just kind of funny. Um, but yeah, no, it's yeah, I agree. Anyway,
Uh,
moving on. Moving into Duke's investigations in a full Robin suit, which is fucking awesome. God, I love this
really,
costume.
and it really it feels like it works with the character too.
Oh,
Like,
definitely. I mean, Duke's entire thing is that he's the homemade Robin. You know,
yeah,
it's really cool.
uh,
It really works. But he's
and
investigating. Is it still the Iceberg Lounge in
it's
this?
the new Iceberg Lounge.
The new
Yeah,
Iceberg Lounge. That's right. Yeah. It every now and then they just slightly change the name, and it throws me off whenever they do.
basically he's
um,
trying to find information on anything that might be able to save his parents.
yeah.
Um, like he has, um, like so he breaks the ice and descends in through the top and like he eventually finds something um and we'll find out what he finds later.
Yes,
um
but for now, Jerry Powers is showing Gordon the Bat Army that she has created. Um, with
definitely not saying anything bad about the policing system.
no,
No,
nothing at
no,
all.
comics
Nothing
aren't
at all.
comics only got political. When did comics get political is the thing that these idiots.
Comics got political whenever Comicsgate decides that they got political. It changes.
Right.
It changes.
Probably when they
Uh,
put a woman on a writing team. Um,
probably when that Marvel series got canceled before it even started.
Oh
The one
God,
the one with
I
what
know
was it, Save
exactly what you're.
Space or whatever? Yeah, that one.
It was
Which to be fair, I don't disagree.
the
Terrible.
look. The designs were cringy, but you maybe have actually been able to do something interesting with those concepts.
Yeah.
Like,
But no, like it wasn't even an actual thing that got off the ground at all. They didn't
not
actually
even one
appear in.
issue. It never
No.
came out.
No. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, nothing happened. So so
yeah,
again, please stop bitching about that. It never even happened. Like
yeah. Jody
anyway,
Powers is being evil girl boss Bruce Wayne who wants to take out the Justice League with her army of
I just
Batman
found
robots.
the exact panel I'm gonna turn into the I'm a girl boss moment.
You found the exact panel.
Yep, you'll find out when I post it.
I I I mean, I won't because I don't watch the podcast
No, no,
visually.
no, no. I'll post it on on a social media.
Ah,
Jake.
okay, I
Yeah,
see. Then I will see it. Yes.
exactly. We then get a horrifying scene where a little girl draws Mr. Bloom and shows it to Bruce Wayne. Which is just I don't know, kind of funny. Also, I'm just now looking at that picture that drawn picture behind Bruce Wayne, and he kind of looks like Joel from The Last of Us.
Kind of, yeah.
You know what?
Uh,
Bruce in general in this story kind of looks like Joel from The Last of Us.
it's because of the beard.
It is the beard. Yeah. You know what? I want to see Last of Us comics drawn by Greg Capullo now. He would nail that. He would
He
fucking
definitely
nail that.
would.
Yeah. Anyway, um, everyone should play slash watch The Last of Us. Anyway, um, back to Duke's investigation. Um, he's met by a bunch of D-listers, which I really like.
What?
Except for
Hey!
Penguin. Except for Penguin.
Hey! I was gonna say I wouldn't call the ventriloquist and Scarface D-listers.
They're
They are
C.
A-listers. They
They're
are
C-listers.
A-listers.
The only A-lister here is Penguin, Jacob. Come on.
Also, who's the one that I don't recognize?
The
That's
one,
not.
the one in all white, the Great White Shark.
Yeah.
That's his name, the Great White Shark.
Oh. Okay.
Yep. It's wonderful.
Also, why is
Um,
Black Mask have a gimp mask?
I don't know.
Was the new how you know what? I think the new 52 was just really horny for
Well, here's
like
the thing: it wasn't the new 52 at this point. It was over. They
it was
they weren't slapping that label on it anymore.
well the post new
This was post
52
convergence.
the post new 52 pre-rebirth was horny.
I think all of comics are just horny. Have you considered that?
I mean, yes, but
40,
this
40 episodes of this podcast, which by the way I haven't mentioned to this point. This is our 40th episode of the podcast. You haven't realized that all comics are horny, literally
I
all of
mean,
them.
yes, they're all horny. Some of them in some very weird ways. Hi, Gimp Mask, Black Mask. Why?
I love Gimp
Why?
Mask, Black Mask. It's just
Um,
fun.
I do love that Duke signals in some birds with death metal to
Yes.
get out. Um, and he kicks the great white shark in the mouth. Um, and we see Jim Gordon in the mech suit on a motorcycle.
It's such a great image. I love it.
Um, and so we get this idea of Blossom Row. Um, and
We saw back in Batman 44.
yes, but it's idea of sort of, you know, basically where the Narrows kind of start in Gotham. And we get this interesting sort of flashback to like old-timey Gotham where the poverty was still terrible. And you have this idea of this idea.
You say that as if the poverty got any better in Gotham over the years.
I mean, you could make an argument that some early Scott Snyder Bruce stuff was improving things, and then the Joker
Before Bruce
happened.
died.
And then Bruce died.
And that's the interesting thing about this is that Snyder didn't really pull out the rug from under us. Like Bruce did die.
Yeah, he was dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's also this sort of like very sickening like Snyder goes all in on how like the rich just giving charity and not trying to like do any sort of societal reform is pointless.
Mhm.
Um
Uh Gordon then eventually goes to this warehouse to try to track down Bloom, and he does. Until, hey, what do you know? The consequences of Jerry Power's own actions. The non-manned bat suits are able to be controlled by other people, specifically Bloom, and it is turned on him, and that is our cliffhanger for the issue. Moving into Batman 47 now. With honestly one of my favorite covers here. I just love Bloom's hands like covering Gordon this way. It's just really
Yeah,
cool.
it's
Really cool stuff. Um yeah, love that. Anyway, do we know who this kid is? We've seen her a couple times,
this
right?
is Olivia. She's just one of the kids that like has trusted in Bruce and has seen Mr. Bloom somehow.
Mm.
Um, and we get this monologue. Where we get the Bullock game night monologue. Um,
Oh, I love this one.
like, are you a gambler? I myself am not. Except on the first Friday of every month, that is. That's when Harvey, Lieutenant Bullock, organizes a game night at his place for all the cadets. The game we play is Harv's own invention. He calls it affectionately GCPD, for Gotham City Played Down. It's basically poker, but with one small twist. The whole game is meant to be played aggressively, fast as you can go. Harvey wants cadets to learn to act, to do, to take calculated risks. The trick of the game, though, is that there's this mystery card on the table the whole time, the Gotham card. It just sits there, face down, ominously, waiting to be revealed and to change the game. Um,
So good.
and,
I
and,
love
and again,
that.
there's this implication that somehow this flower on the wall of the Lucius Fox Center also might have Bloom's influence somehow. Like,
It's that thing that a lot of this story is playing with. It's just that fear of the unknown. It's just like we know who Bloom is as a character, but we don't. We barely even find out everything that he's capable of. Just really really cool. Just that untapped potential of the character that I would love to see in future stories more. And also, I haven't read Task Force Z, but I probably should. Because it's like I said, it's zombie Suicide Squad with a bunch of dead DC characters, and Jason Todd is leading the team.
ooh,
Yeah,
that could be interesting.
yeah, it sounds very fun, and I have a family member that read it actually, and she said it was very good. So
Yes.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but
Anyway,
with Gordon demands Rookie to let him go, and Bloom's like, "You heard him, let him go." So the mech suit just throws him to the ceiling and is like going to chop him into helicopter blades.
it's so good. Um, we of course get away from that because grapples down to the ground, and it's a cool moment. There's this great fight between Gordon and the mech suit, um, eventually resulting in blowing up the suit.
Yeah, all
Um,
playing this idea of Gordon just has to act. He cannot think.
mhm,
And it ends up blowing up the mech suit. And Mr. Bloom's like, "Oh, after all you've been through together," and it's just a creepy ending.
yeah.
Um, Before we go
Um,
back to Duke, who is fighting his way out of the iceberg lounge.
okay, let's
Uh,
settle for C-listers.
I can settle for C-listers.
You know what? Honestly, I would say Black Mask belongs higher up more than like ventriloquist Scarface,
Maybe I
which is
just
which,
like ventriloquist.
which is a shame because I wish ventriloquist Scarface was known more than they are.
Also, resurrect Sako, you cowards.
Yes, bring back Sako. I love Sako so much. Um, yeah. Also,
Uh,
let Mark Hamill voice Scarface. Um,
yes.
seriously, like
Uh,
I don't know if I were just to cast Mark Hamill in any other DC villain or DC character, it would be Scarface immediately. Which
yeah,
technically, Mark Hamill has already done.
yeah.
Because
Technically,
if you count that one brief bit where Joker has the puppet in Arkham Asylum.
yes.
So
Uh,
anyway, but Duke escapes. Obviously, but it's just a fun little scene. Meanwhile, Gordon is still getting his ass handed to him by Mr. Bloom. Um, Once again, Capullo draws a lot of these really great panels here that are just this really close up look at Bloom's
because we
face.
go right in. This is where we go into real body horror. Like, it's his foot that he's under, and it
Hmm.
looks like this giant spider. And
Yeah,
there's sort of that gaping maw in Bloom's face, um, as the flower petals have like gone and extended back behind his head. Like, it's these tiny little details that just one, the inconsistency is in the design is kind of the point because it's like what you can't like you say we know about Mr. Bloom, like, and we kind of do. We get what he wants, but we don't get what he or it is because
Yeah.
it's definitely like an it. It's not human. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, ugh. We then go back to Duke again. Bruce actually saves Duke. Duke is being hunted down by some of the mobsters working here. And Bruce like knocks him out with a baseball bat. Which again, my God, he just looks like Joel from The Last of Us, especially here because you can't actually kill things with a baseball bat in the game.
when did The Last of Us come out?
2013.
2013. So it would have been out for like 3-ish years by this
Yeah,
point.
and there was already a remaster out in 2014.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
but I
interesting. Very small side tangent. Last of Us came out towards like the very end of the PS3's lifespan. So when like the PS4 came out like immediately after, they're like, we're remastering this immediately, and it looks so much better on the PS4. But anyway, um, moving on. uh, we then sort of like keep flip flopping back and forth between Gordon Bloom scenes and Bruce and Duke scenes. Um, and then we
Daryl
see
has news on Duke's parents.
yes,
Bruce tries to get Duke to open up. Uh,
mhm.
and
And we get this wonderful scene where Duke tries to get Bruce to confront what he's been running from subconsciously this whole time. Where they're in like this tunnel system with these subway tracks, and uh, and there's this train coming forward, and uh, and Bruce like sees it as a bat like running towards him. It's just really great image, um, and uh, and was and Bruce like jumps out of the way. He gets Duke out of there, um, and this is when we really start to play around with like Bruce's mentality and like where he's at and like what he knows he has to confront eventually and what he is afraid to confront. Um,
and he has to confront
which we're
what
really
the
going to get into next issue. But go on.
yeah. Well, so because you have Gordon trying to unmask Bloom, but there are 3 Blooms at one point. Like Bloom is multiplying. It's an entity. It's no longer a person. It's an entity, and there are a bunch of Blooms. And then we have because we're all building up to this idea of that's the thing about playing GCPD at Harvey's. The face down card, the Gotham card, it's on a secret timer. Countdown is random, so you never know when or if the card will flip. A whole game could go by without the card ever flipping. But if the timer does go off, you have to flip the card, and right then, all the money won so far the entire night, it all goes back on the table. You're now playing one hand for everything. Everything changed with the flip of a card. So turn it over. See what it is, right? And we have
So
Bruce on
he goes
this
back to
this park bench.
yeah, that he's been
Um,
going to the whole time, and there's someone sitting there on the bench already.
well,
Sorry, oh no, sorry, no. Bruce sits down and someone approaches him. Sorry.
yeah, we have the narration going. On the one hand, it could be something, it could be bad, something that destroys everything you've built, something that transforms your whole night into a nightmare. On the other hand, it could be a revelation. In fact, the Gotham card, Bruce comes to the realization, I'm Batman, and he gets cut off by this man saying, "Excuse me, do you mind if I sit here? Taking some time alone? I get it. I've seen you sitting here from time to time." It's
And
like, yeah,
oh,
yes, I was an accident here. That's funny. So was I.
and then so perfectly you realize that the person talking to him is the Joker. A similar thing has happened to the Joker that happened to Bruce. Looks horrifying, dressed in this all white suit that's absolutely perfect. And then we get this beautiful callback to Death of the Family, where we see we close in on the street lamp above them, and these moths that are in front of it that look like
Yeah.
the flies on the computer screen. It's just
And the
ugh.
last line of the narration is that the Gotham card, that card could be your best friend in a long time. So
And we move into Batman 48, which is my second favorite issue in this whole story.
I, so this cliffhanger was just, ooh, it kind of floored me because throughout all this, I'm like, where's the Joker? Where is he hiding?
Yep. I was curious though if you ever thought at any point because I told you like I said I already mentioned that like the Joker appears at some point in every single one of Snyder's Batman stories, and I was wondering if you ever thought that like okay maybe he doesn't actually like show up maybe it's more like a more metaphorical thing maybe it's a vision that Bruce has something, But no, he's actually here. I wonder if you ever like played around with that idea.
No, I thought he had to be here,
Mm.
in some capacity, especially since, like, one thing I knew is that Bloom is definitely not the Joker. Like,
Hmm.
Bloom is
That
definitely
was a big
something.
theory at the time. Is people were like speculating about Bloom's identity when this was coming out, and they're like, "Oh, is it the fucking Joker again?"
I
And
mean, that just wouldn't work because, like, the way Snyder writes Bloom is not the way he writes the Joker. Like,
mm, I
it's
getcha.
just it's just it like Snyder has a very clear
Snyder's run
characterization.
Snyder's run was also under a lot of fire at the time for Joker accusations for overusing him so much, supposedly. It didn't help that at the time, this entire run came out in the span of the rest of the Arkham franchise from Arkham City onwards, which also got accused a lot of Joker overuse.
I mean,
Um,
I'd argue it's just Joker overuse in pop culture in general because you
yeah,
had.
which is a shame when you levy those criticisms against something like the Snyder Run or the Arkham games that use the character of the Joker really, really well and really effectively to his fullest potential.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, I would say I part of me hopes when we get to the Tom King run that King doesn't use the Joker for a while, like give it a couple
I could
arcs.
I could think of like two main stories that Joker appears in King's Run. He really doesn't use them much at all.
Yeah, just because, like, I feel like if they kept using him afterwards, that would become oversaturated.
Mhm.
Especially with the fact that, Suicide Squad the film would just be happening like after this. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously the Arkham
You
games,
know, now that I think about it, Joker wasn't used much at all in the early Rebirth stuff. Huh.
which might be for the best, might be for the
Oh,
best.
definitely. Yeah, it's not a bad thing.
Um,
But especially
but
considering where Snyder leaves things with this character here, let's fucking talk about this. First off, this cover here is probably the scariest one of this whole collection.
yeah,
I
it's
just
terrifying.
that single teardrop running down his face there. Just oh my god, that's if you're not if you don't know what the cover is, listening to this podcast, look at Batman 48. The cover is just haunting. Um, all right, so let's really analyze the Bruce Wayne Joker relationship, or the Batman Joker relationship, I suppose. Um, I love this so much. We realized that we learned that this guy that was once the Joker.
Okay, so this is
Uh,
also, I think this might be where Snyder has the Joker be the funniest he's been in the entire run.
hmm,
Like, just in these little moments of. So I theorize the Joker knows. The Joker knows that Bruce has amnesia.
even even subconsciously here though. Do you? That's the thing. There are so many things that you could play around with in this scene. How much do we think these characters know? Do we think the Joker actually has amnesia right now?
I don't think he does. I think he's
Mm,
just. I think he. I think. I think the Joker has kind of at the end of Endgame realized what sort of force the Joker needs to be for Batman,
that is
but
so interesting because
and almost realizes that, like, with the whole Bloom stuff going on, just how, like, Batman either needs to come back or be completely gone completely. Um
that's a
there's so
valid take.
much.
That's a valid take, but I personally love this scene so much more if he does genuinely have amnesia and they just happen to cross paths because it's that idea of destiny that Snyder always plays around with between these two characters, that they're always destined to be with each other, that when Bruce that like when Bruce is dying at the end of Endgame, he says, I want to be here with my friend. You know, that they will always be linked in this way, no matter what lives they're currently living. Um,
And
I
it's such a good sequence. I love the first line. I'm sorry, do we know each other? Oh, I'm just here to fight you to the death. Excuse me? For the bench, of course. I'm sorry, I was kidding. We both seem to love this spot equally. It's like an island of peace in the center of the city, am I right?
I picture
And
this Joker with such an innocent voice, just this almost high pitch, almost unnerving register that could be really sinister if you weren't talking about fairly innocent things here.
but
Um,
also very disarming. Like,
yeah. Oh, I love it. Oh my god. Okay. Let's
like
get into it. Oh my god. There's so much to talk about here. Um, it's there's this idea that Bruce knows that something's not right with this guy. He doesn't know that this guy is the Joker. But again, he knows that something is off here. So like, there's this whole bit where like Joker's like feeding the fish here in the in the pond in front of them,
yeah.
and Joker keeps like reaching into the bag, and Bruce is like watching him reach into the bag as if like something bad is gonna happen. Meanwhile, we're watching like Bloom absolutely tear Jim Gordon apart in front of the entire city. We keep going back and forth between these two scenes. Joker then pulls a gun out of his bag and talks about some. First off, really dark scene, ridiculously dark scene incoming.
But also kind of hilarious.
Yeah,
Like,
so the line here reads, well, Bruce asks him like, "What's going on?" And Joker apologizes for having a gun on him. So I love this line here. Joker says, I'll read this whole bit because it's so good. I was just trying to make a point. I didn't mean to startle you. See, I was hurt in the Joker's attack too. One of the last rescued. The whole thing, it just changed me. At first, I felt lost. I didn't know who I was. I felt like you build a life, you have a purpose, and then that life, whatever it might have been, it's wiped away. What's the point of starting over? Do you know what I mean? Right, so the gun. So I bought it. I came here to this place to use it on myself. I had it in my mouth. Sometimes when I smile, I can still taste the metal. But then it struck me how quiet the spot was, how calm. Like a gun couldn't be fired here, you know? Like it was the one place in the city where a gun shouldn't and couldn't go off. So I started coming here day by day, and now I work at a butcher shop. I have an apartment. I'm happy. And I see you here. You used to look lost, sort of haunted. But lately you seem. And Bruce finishes his sentence at rest. And Joker says, so don't do it. Don't become who you were before. Um, we then later clarify, after some more Jim Gordon butchering. Um,
basically. So actually, I will say for the Jim Gordon butchery, I had a note of Mr. Bloom has become a kaiju, and is like
yes, he has.
taking Gordon to the top of like the highest point in Gotham to kill
Yep.
him.
Yep.
Uh,
Um, yeah, so we clarify in the Joker Bruce scene afterwards that like he's Joker is saying that like he doesn't want Bruce Wayne to become, billionaire, big company owner again. He wants him to like focus on the little people like he is right now. He wants him to help to rebuild this area because it's very important to him and to them both. Um and Bruce eventually declines this, to which Joker then holds the gun up to his face, and there's a boom that goes off, and we see that that's the an explosion across town. But there's that implication that Joker would have actually killed himself there.
yeah, well, it's this. So the entire scene has just all of these little double meanings and little things where you're the tension is rising, then you're disarmed a little bit, and then the tension rises and it disarms, and it rises and falls. And like the final lines from from the Joker's, then again, we could both just quit while we're ahead.
God,
And
so good.
it's
And
this
then
idea.
Bruce goes to run towards the city on fire and turns back around, and Joker's missing.
And
He's
then
just gone.
I hypothesize that's like right, like that the Joker's like, right, if you do this, I will be forced to come back. And like there's the bit that's almost plea of the Joker, like, I'm actually happy and a human being for once. Don't make me be back where I have to be.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying and quite sad. And the rest of this issue keeps just sort of how dark it is. Because again, like Bloom makes a public service announcement to the city. Um, my friends and I are here with a public announcement. This city is about to die. Happy Tuesday.
It's so good. Um and once again, he's just parading Gordon through the city, just showing how Batman has fallen. We see all these different people becoming Bloom and helping him to take this city. Um, and we watched like Jerry in the middle of all this, just like not knowing what to do, and she's like, just send the suits out. Bloom continues to evolve and grow, and we see all these like different like appendages grow off of him, and these like vines, tentacle type things growing off of him. And once again, you're right, he is a kaiju. Also to the point where the flower has literally physically grown off of his face, and it's becoming
Yeah.
a flower of its own off of the face. Like, oh, how horrifying is all that? It's so good.
And
Um, and Bruce
then
at
we
this
get
moment. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, we get the probably the hardest scene to read in
Um,
this entire
yeah.
arc of Bruce going back to the Fox Center, seeing Julie being like, "Right, we need to get the kids out of here, get them safe." And Olivia, who's just been this kid who's been scared the entire time, says, "We're not leaving. We can fight him. I can do it." And her figure is morphed and destroyed into a creature because you see her with just this bloody arm that she's taken a seed and a box cutter and opened
Uh,
herself up to take the seed and
oh my god.
become a creature.
You know
Uh,
what is the hardest scene to read though for me is immediately afterwards. We watch some more destruction from Bloom on the city, and Alfred is watching it all on the news at Wayne Manor, and we see this banging on the door. And Alfred's terrified of it. He's saying, "No, I can't hear you." He's covering his ears. He doesn't want this to happen because Bruce Wayne then kicks down the door, and as Alfred is crying and doesn't want this to happen, Bruce says, "Take me to to my cave." And that is where we end the issue. Going into easily, far and away, not just one of my favorite issues, not well, easily my favorite of this story, one of my favorites of the whole Snyder run, and honestly, just one of my favorite Batman issues in general. I This is Batman 49, um, with a haunting cover by Yannick Paquette, I believe that's how you say the name,
yeah.
um, and it's so good. So first off, you were really thrown off by this. You messaged me while you were reading it. You were like, "Is this a tie-in to something?" I was like, "It is not a tie-in
I
to
was like this.
something."
It feels like because we're seeing alternate Earths, and I'm like, what are we? Are we doing something randomly tied in, shoved in the middle of this story?
Oh no, we're tying it all back to Court of Owls because that's how this is
Yes.
always going to end, sort of. No, it's just a quick Court of Owls reference. But where this is really happening, what's really happening here is we're continuing this scene here. Alfred just desperately does not want Bruce to become Batman again.
And we see these flashes of this world where Batman is a hero and the mayor of Gotham and an authority figure,
Mm-hmm.
and that like he has a council of owls working for him, and that feels wrong.
Yeah,
Um, and that feels wrong. And
yeah.
Alfred, then you had Alfred breaking down, basically saying, it's like, what's behind the clock, Alfred? Nothing's behind it, sir. Please, if you'll just. It's like it goes down to the caves below this place, doesn't it? It was the fear in your voice when you were telling me my history, the way you walked towards it. I knew it had a secret. That's why I stopped you. All those months ago, I wasn't the Bruce from before. They weren't my secrets to take. But now I know there's no way around it. I know what's behind this door. I need to see it.
And then
Don't. Please
leading
don't.
up,
I beg you, my son.
oh my god, it'll fucking break your heart. My favorite moment in this whole issue is very early on, but it's uh Bruce says, "Mr. Blue just ripped Gordon apart on live television. He may be dead. It's chaos out there. I can do something about it." Which Alfred, tears in his eyes, says, "There are others. Someone else can do it. Just please don't say it." And Alfred falls to his knees, holding on to his son. And Bruce says, "Alfred, I'm Batman.
Alfred
I'm
still only
Batman."
having one hand.
Yeah, which is hard to remember at times. And you know what? It's been a while since I've reread the Tom King run. I think that just gets forgotten about after this.
In epilogue, they actually address it. They
Oh,
give
okay.
him.
All right. That makes sense. I didn't reread
It's
Epilogue,
yeah,
obviously.
it's there. It's kind of dumb, just a little bit, but
Oh, also,
also
sorry, go ahead.
it does sort of the techie thing of
Mhm.
like the technology Bruce has is what's able to allow him to get his hand back.
Mm.
Um,
Also, for those listening who are wondering, Jacob did not read the last issue of Epilogue because when we eventually do Tom King stuff, we're going to cover Batman Rebirth #1 as part of that. So,
it's
yeah.
also that issue is also treated as like a special bonus treat after the all
Yeah. Well, also because otherwise the trade would be 3 issues long, or no,
y-
4 issues long, and
4 issues
you're not
long, and
you're not
it's
filling up anything with that.
one of those
So
issues is an event tie-in.
yeah, which like you're really stretching if you throw Futures End into that.
Yeah,
Anyway, but yeah, more look at another look at this alternate Earth
we
where Bruce
see
is.
one of his right-hand men are Joe Chill,
Yep.
and then we get down into the caves, which is a tomb.
Alfred believes that because he smashed the machine, there's no actual way to recover the old Bruce, even if he wanted to help with this. But Bruce is like, hey, if Batman was this good, if there was, if he is as good as everyone says, then surely there was uh surely there was like a way to like still recover this. Um, and so he figures it out that like Bruce Wayne that Bruce an older Bruce still did uh like plant something into this machine that like it could still be recovered. You could still get back his memories. Um, we then go back to the Earth where we catch up with first off we see the bat suit here, this white and gold bat suit, which I really love here. Just a cool design, and we see Julie in this Earth. Um,
Happily with Bruce and Julie having a kid together. Um, and this idea of this Bruce trying to push himself too hard to be better, being attacked by an elemental and being kind of destroyed in this Earth. And we see other Earths where Batman is destroyed. One where uh, Gordon is Batman, um, and um, and uh, Bruce
big,
is just a detective. There's
yep,
one that looks kind of like Batman Beyond, just a little bit, but also kind of like Phantom of the Paradise.
yeah.
Um, um, there's a religious Batman, and this whole idea of all these alternate Batmans being like, right, Bruce Wayne cannot die. Someone needs to press the button to make to actually do the memory transfer. Um, and Alfred is like, you listen, you're asking me to kill that boy. That boy I gave my entire life for. I can't press this button, sir. I'm turning it off. I won't turn it up. I won't kill you. Bruce begging, please. And who walks in but Julie Madison?
I love it. Oh, I love it so much. It's so good. Yeah, so Julie is first off very well aware of Bruce's secret identity, which is awesome. Um, but uh, but yeah, so she's here to she is going to be the one to push the button because Alfred will not do it for Bruce. She will potentially kill him because she knows that that even if that if she never does it, basically that there will still never be a Batman. He will die no matter what. So they have to take this chance, and so she takes it for him. She takes it for Alfred, and it's this really great moment. Which I just want to reflect for a moment on Julie Madison as a character, because my God, what Snyder has done with this absolute nothing character beforehand, and just turned her into so much more in the Batman mythos. I really love this. It's great to see. Um, but of course, it works. Bruce literally dies so that Batman can be reborn. And
And he gets regenerated in the process, basically,
yeah.
um, to make him back to 27 again. Um,
And yeah, that's it. We end on this great moment. Alfred looks
and
horrified. Julie looks so sad. And Bruce says, "Save it for the car. Let's go to work." And we go into Batman #50, the last issue that we're covering of the Batman Scott Snyder arc. Um, First off, I love this cover. It's such a great cover. I adore this. Um, but yeah, moving on. Let's get into it. So we get a Jim Gordon opening monologue, and as we like show Bruce sort of looking through his bat suit closet, deciding what to wear for this. all the while we have like Gordon like monologuing about giving the people something new, something to and so teasing the fact that we're getting a new suit in this, um, which honestly I now that I'm thinking about it, I can't remember if they'd actually revealed the rebirth suit before this. I think they had,
I mean,
probably.
they hold it off to before to till we actually see it. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I can't remember now that I think about it. Weird.
yeah.
No, no, no.
Um,
I mean just like in like press
Promotional
and all that. Yeah,
material.
I can't remember if they had.
Well, would they have even announced Rebirth was happening?
Oh
Like
yeah,
when
yeah,
this
yeah. They had. Yeah, I think they announced Rebirth a good like 6-ish months before it started up. But I don't know if they had revealed all the designs by that point. I don't know. Something to look back on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Uh,
it's just this is all taking me back to like 2016 and just like remember like I remember like obsessively like watching that big press live stream they did, where they revealed all the titles for Rebirth and like what exactly Rebirth was, and it was so exciting, to just be a DC fan at that time. Anyway, so yeah, Gordon has been taken away from the Bloom attacks. Julie is trying to save him now at this point. Um, the Batman mech suits down on the ground are trying to fight off Bloom. Or no, are they working with Bloom at this point? I can't remember.
they're trying to fight off Bloom. This is when they get taken over because they're the police.
Yeah.
Um, and they lose control, but we see, you know, more and more Bloom creatures still going to attack Gordon. Um, you know, sucking all the power from the building into the bat signal. Um, and it's like you die with the signal sucked dry and dark because you are not Bat. No, I am, and Batman's back, baby.
Look at it. Okay, so I gotta know, what do you think of the Rebirth suit?
I want this suit to be like the main suit for a while,
It was
please.
for a while. Unfortunately, you live in a time where it's not anymore, and I don't
Yeah,
know. I love this suit.
yeah. It's. I
um,
have a feeling
yeah,
some people probably would hate it because of like the purple. It seems that
yeah.
people seem to hate when they add like color into Batman suits, and they're like, no, Batman suits can be dark and colorful at the same time.
I love this suit so much. I love purple in the cape. I love the way the belt is done. The yellow outside the symbol. It's awesome. I do especially love the way Capullo draws it, and I'm pretty sure this is like the only time he ever drew it. But
Basically,
it's
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Um, but hey, it's a great debut issue for the suit. I love it. And a lot of the rest of this issue is just a big action sequence, which I'm not complaining about because Snyder always nails action and Capullo's great at drawing it. We got a
so
great.
we
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
we have the idea that the Hadron Collider is trying to make a strange matter explosion to basically raise Gotham to the ground.
Hmm.
Um, Sort of playing on this idea of almost a falling star, an energy pulse. Bruce tells Gordon to leave. Um, and Gordon's Gordon says Godspeed, old friend, and he looks like he's going to. We then figure out a scene with Duke. And here's where we get the hints of a reveal.
Yeah.
Um, that so Duke's parents
Uh,
are still affected by the Joker's toxin.
mhm.
Um, you know, he found a lot of names in the Iceberg Lounge. One that he could make out, his own name. And then he found some other names, including Daryl Gutierrez.
Yes. Um, who we essentially learn is our big twist villain here behind a lot of behind the whole Bloom attack thing, and
Behind the development of the
but
Bloom.
yeah, behind Bloom's origins, pretty much. He helped develop the seed and all that, and it's just a cool idea. I don't know. I don't think it's done quite as effectively as say like the what was the character? What was Joker's alias in Endgame?
Um,
Uh, fuck.
I don't remember.
I can't remember what
Uh,
it was now. Shit, it's such a good twist too. I love that one. Actually,
the Arkham Guard. Yeah.
yeah, I can't remember what his name was. Um, whatever. I love that. Actually, wait. What are the was it? Because Death of the Family and Zero Year are like the only ones without twist villains. All the other Snyder arcs had twist villains. Um,
Yeah.
Lincoln March and Court of Owls. I always love that one. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, this one's solid enough though. It's fine. It's not built up quite as well as the others, I would say, but it's still
It's
done
very
good.
much part of it also feels like Snyder had to be held back from what he really wanted to do with Duke Thomas. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
feel
I
like
mean
Snyder
yeah,
wanted to do more but couldn't. We get
mhm,
some action of Bruce fighting off these imposter bat suits.
yeah.
Um,
A lot of them are
we have Jim going in to try to shut things down despite being so beaten up. We have a Joker bat suit. We find out Daryl has taken a seed, and it turns out he's actually trying to stop Bloom because he initially developed the seeds.
and he basically wanted to take credit for it, I guess.
Yeah.
um, yeah, he's just mad that like somebody else stole the technology, basically.
They liken him to Dr. Frankenstein, which is
Mhm.
and Bloom is the monster because we never find out who Bloom is. We find out it also connects to the kid who died in 44 in the
Yeah,
big
well,
flash.
yeah, that he's basically the reason that Daryl started developing the seed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't even know which seed worked. I don't know if he's a man, a woman. He took my mask. He took all my work. He took it all. But I'm going to take it back, Duke. I am. You watch. And it's kind of sympathetic, but this man is also kind of crazy, and he almost
Yeah.
immediately gets his ass handed to him. Um, we have we have this buildup of Gordon trying, trying to figure out, okay, how is he controlling the suits? What has he got? He took intent off this building. Bloom is still tracking him because Bloom is Bloom. Bloom knows kind of what he can do.
Mhm.
Um, Before Bruce takes a mech suit, and actually we have a giant mech versus kaiju fight in the
It's
middle of
really
the
nice.
city. Um, with this, and the stakes seem to escalate until Jim Gordon ends up being the one to really save the day by getting
Mhm.
a shot in before Duke Thomas enters the fray. Has to be saved um, by Batman. Um, and we find out like all um all of the seeds just end up slowly dying as this strange matter explosion happens, and Gordon is willing to sacrifice himself. um
Mhm.
and it gets really surreal,
Yeah.
like right by the
Um,
end.
Gordon then like is like reflecting on the time on when like Jerry wanted him to like officially resign, and he wasn't sure what he was gonna say at the press conference, but then he realizes what he was going to say, and it's a bit lengthy, but if I could, I would like to read it out for a moment. Um, I'd say that my being Batman, me Jim Gordon, it was a mistake, the dumbest idea in the history of Gotham City. But the ugly truth is, without him around, I was scared. I wasn't scared of monsters or damn supervillains, but real things. What if the system doesn't work? Everything I fought for my whole life, the city itself, what if it's all broken and unfair and unfixable? I don't know what makes you scared, what makes you rage. Maybe that you'll never get a chance, or that the chips are stacked against you and always will be, or worse, against your kids. Maybe you just want a superhero to fix it all. Well, I tried to be that superhero. To fix what I couldn't, I fix as Jim Gordon. But superheroes never fix those things for us. Not even Batman. He can't fix the real things because he's not real. I felt it standing on the rooftops with him. People say that bats are messengers from the land of the dead. Whoever he is, he died a long time ago. He's a cautionary tale, a ghost. He fights for our nightmares to teach us to fight the real terrors by light of day. He believes in us, Jerry. That's the reason the power levels are going down. The seeds are coming out. It's why I'm here. Not because Batman can save us, but because he believes we will save ourselves. He's the superhero who sees in us the heroes we can be. And through him, we're reminded that places like Gotham, they're leaps of faith. They're a bunch of people who believe, more stupidly, that we're stronger for our differences than not. We believe we might hate each other or fear each other, but we're Gotham, an island of stability, as you called it, where brave new things are made. Truth is, I forgot that for a while, but like everyone else out there, I remember now.
And
And
that's kind of the point, isn't it? Like
yeah, that's the entire point of the story, just summed up in 2 pages. Like it's perfect.
everything's broken and only we can fix the system,
Yeah,
really.
and it's so good. So all the like I found it I loved the sheer amount of like, okay, well, what if Jim Gordon Batman did this, or what if he stuck around longer, or like the amount of like Twitter questions we got about that particular subject. I was like, that's really interesting because the story addresses why it doesn't exist the way it does, why Jim Gordon's time as Batman is so brief, and why it
Yes.
has to be brief to be an effective story, and to do what Snyder wants it to do. So yeah, I love that. Bloom is defeated in the end, obviously, in this wonderful flash of big, crazy Greg Capullo art. But it's actually his last bit of art on this issue and on Superheavy as a story. So he does get what, issue 51 in epilogue,
Yes.
which is nice.
Which is nice.
But yeah, the epilogue is done by the same artist that does 49, and it's really nice here. So we have the epilogue, not the volume epilogue, but the epilogue of issue 50. Um, First off, it's weird to see Gordon's hair growing back from where it was at.
Yeah.
Just
I
looks
mean, it
kind of
starts with a
funny.
flashback to, Gordon first arriving in the city.
Yeah,
And we have Jim Gordon in a hospital bed. A lot of these arcs end with someone in a hospital bed.
yeah.
Um, um,
Well, pretty much all of them, right?
right, yeah, well, except
Except for
Endgame.
Zero Year. No, no, no. Endgame does. Endgame has Alfred in the
Oh,
bed.
right. So it's just 0 year.
It's
0 year.
just 0 year. Wow. Wait, no,
Um,
wait. Oh no, because Damien's recovering in at the end of Death of the Family.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. How about that? All right
Um,
then.
so this is basically Gordon steps down fine as Batman completely, and
Yep.
he is back
He's
as commissioner.
reinstated as commissioner. Um, and then Gordon has this one last little conversation with Batman. Just about everything that's happened. It's just a really nice scene between the two of them, and
Bruce
their first.
thanks him
Mhm,
for keeping the city safe while he was gone. After Jim apologizes, and it's this nice little moment.
mhm.
Um,
You see that um, Duke is still haunted by his parents because they're probably never gonna recover. Um, and then Gordon says to Batman, he's like, not safe enough. Like, see, you didn't let me finish because what I'm most sorry for, it's just for not letting you rest. And Batman says it's okay because then Bruce goes to see Duke to comfort him. And he says, I have an offer for you, and setting up Duke's further adventures, which actually mostly were not followed up on in the main Batman title, but in Scott Snyder's All Star Batman in Rebirth. So yeah, that's
so he
where
did get the chance to do stuff with the character.
he did.
Uh,
Yep, yeah, just not as Robin, obviously.
yeah.
So yeah,
We see.
there's a really nice Two Face story that kicks off that run, which is
Ooh,
really nice.
fun.
Yeah.
But we also see Julie Madison helping clean up the rubble at the Lucius Fox Center. We see
Mhm.
sort of the destroyed T Rex in the playground. Um, and we finish the conversation of Bruce and Gordon, asking who the hell, it's like
Oh,
who the hell do you
it's a
think?
reflection of that opening monologue from the epilogue of how Gotham City like hits you when you first see it.
Yeah,
It's like it's staring you back in the face, and Gordon says like, "Who the hell do you think you are?" And that's easy enough. You're Batman. The rest of us, but we do what we can to be able to say, "I was here."
here.
And Julie
While
looks at
reflecting
the
on Julie seeing Bruce Wayne's brick in the center, the brick being an idea of everyone who comes to the center has a brick that is their own that represents them as part of this building community.
yep,
And it's just a really touching ending to the
yeah,
story.
and it really nails just again what this whole last story is about, and what Snyder really does to put a final stamp on his run and still say like, hey, other people can still come in and tell their own stories and be just as great as this was.
Yes.
Yeah, love it. Really great stuff.
And
There
then
is
we
one
get
last little thing in this collection.
so this is a short story from Detective Comics number 27 from the New 52.
Yep.
Sort of playing out the idea of what happens if the machine worked and we see some future Batman. It's drawn by Sean Murphy. Um, and it's honestly it's this it looks cool, but it's just not really a story. It's an interesting idea, but it
Hmm.
was like published earlier, not even as a tease, just as kind of an idea of a possible future, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and like to celebrate 27 issues of Detective Comics. That's all it
Yeah.
is.
Which is interesting because that would have been published well before this
Way before.
issue 50
Way,
or
way
any of the
before.
super heavy stuff ever was. So
Yeah.
yeah, so you could just tell like how long Snyder was planning all this.
Finding some of these ideas.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Yeah.
That's
At the end of the Bloom collection, there's some really great Batman v Superman variant covers that I really love.
there are also just some other I think there's some other variant covers.
Mhm.
There's a Harley and Ivy pair of variant covers.
Yep.
As part of it. But yeah, but because
Oh yeah, there are two Tim Sale ones at the end for Batman v Superman.
oh yeah, those are
Yeah,
very nice.
yeah. Oh, I love Tim Sale. What a lad.
Yeah,
Actually, what's
but
really cool is Tim Sale in the Tom King Rebirth stuff. He did all the variants for the first, I think, 20 odd issues.
yeah, you
Um,
mentioned that.
yeah, some of my favorite Tim Sale pieces come from those variants. They're really
But yeah,
great.
but there are like okay, so like the amount of variant covers they list them at the top of
Yeah,
sort of when they do it, and it takes 2 pages to list them
it's
all.
a lot. Yeah.
Um,
But
Now,
yeah,
luckily,
that
some of
was
them weren't just Batman. Some of them, like the idea, I think the idea basically was is for the Batman v Superman ones. They were all variants that they would connect if you took Batman 50 and Superman 50, um, and put them together because Batman v Superman.
yeah.
Um, but it's nice art. That is
That's that. That is it. That is the
that's
end of
the
the Scott
end.
Snyder run on Batman. Minus epilogue, of course, but honestly, you don't need it.
Yeah, I
If you
mean,
want to read it,
I
then
would recommend reading at least issue 51 and the annual number 4. Um, the rest of
because
the
annual
collection.
because annual number 4 is basically part of Super Heavy.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
almost like it feels like it was meant to go at the end of the super heavy volume.
yeah,
Um,
but yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure if memory serves, there was a delay in publishing it. If I'm right about that.
yeah,
But yeah, that would be that. So fuck, that's it. I feel like I thought I would have more to say, but this was a long episode, and we kind of covered everything we wanted to say,
yeah,
didn't we?
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
It feels weird. It does feel a bit weird that episode 41 isn't Tom King's Batman Volume 1.
No, nope.
No,
We're saving that.
we're saving that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be great. I
Yeah.
hope. I hope you like it.
Well, who knows? Who knows? That's
Yeah. Oh, hey, also, this is our first episode releasing after we started a special little spin-off to
yes,
Fresh Face
yes,
Comics.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
As of this time, either 2 or 3, I'm not exactly sure which, episodes are out of a little series we're calling Fresh Faced One Shots, where instead of covering whole volumes and collections, we're covering current issues that are coming out currently from DC
Yes.
Comics, which is pretty awesome. We started covering the Joshua Williamson run on Superman. The first 3 issues are out. We recorded all 3 of those yesterday for us.
Oh,
So yeah,
back to back.
those videos are currently releasing, and we'll be keeping up with that monthly. We're also going to be talking about, I think I can say it at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brave and the Bold
Raven
by
the
Tom
Bold.
King and Various. So yeah, that'll be
And
fun.
then we will also
And
be adding a third book later on this year
yeah,
to
so
it.
that'll
But
be
we won't
fun.
announce that yet.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff. You can go check those out. They're more like short form content for our comic book related stuff. So yeah, if you want to check those out, those are that would be greatly appreciated. Share them around. It would mean a lot. It's a bit of a new thing for us. So yeah, it'd be nice if
Yeah.
it was well supported. Um, but I
Uh,
guess, Jacob, since you actually
yes,
know it ahead of time,
I
would you like to
do.
tell the listeners what
I
episode
am
41 is?
so excited. We are returning to pre-crisis DC for the third time. to cover Volume 3 of the New Teen Titans by Marv
Indeed.
Wolfman and George Perez.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, we have our friend Andrew, who's on the second episode of our Teen Titans coverage, coming back for this third episode. Yeah, so that's coming out.
if you are listening to this episode on the day that it released, we
That's
are
true. Yeah, we're actually recording that episode the night that of the day that this episode comes out. So we're probably still taking Twitter questions at the time that you're listening to this.
yes,
So go to our Twitters. I'm at Joe with 3 underscores, and he's at Newt5996. They'll be
996.
linked in the description in our link
Our link
trees.
trees will also be in the description because once again, we don't know what the state of Twitter is. Um, it's gonna be going down. I'm afraid it's gonna be It's been going downhill and gonna be plummeting further
Yeah,
now that
as of today, recording this, they officially took away verification check marks from legacy verified
I,
accounts today. So,
except for a few that Musk is personally paying for because
yeah, to make people think that they're actually paying for the service, which I
I
think
think
is
he's just
really
trying to
funny.
get people to harass people like Stephen King, which I'm like, Stephen King is an old man. You are
He's also way better at dealing with online internet trolls than you think he is.
yeah. Well, because
Uh,
Elon Musk is an insecure man who can't understand that he's actually like no one, like none of the people that he admires, because he clearly admires a lot of celebrities like him.
yeah, it's
But
wonderful.
yeah,
Oh, we love it.
uh, yes.
Um,
But
all
our
right,
link
I
trees
guess
will be
that's it.
below.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're listening on YouTube, please leave a like, comment on YouTube, or reach out to us on Twitter, or on other social medias, depending on what's available. The stuff will
Yeah,
be linked. If you are listening to it on a podcast platform, please leave a rating and a review. It'll help us out immensely.
absolutely. Um, so yeah, go do all that. Links will be down in the description. As I already mentioned, of course, if you want to buy Super Heavy and Bloom through Amazon, I'll leave links to that down in the description as well as the book we're reading next time, New Teen Titans Volume 3. That'll be down there as well. So be sure to check all that out. Yeah, I guess that about does it, right?
Right. That does
Yeah,
it.
cool. I'll take it. All right. Thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan.
And Jacob Licklider,
Goodbye.
goodbye.
Okay, this is so fucking great. I'm adding this after the actual credits of the episode. Okay, so my favorite person ever to read out the Twitter name of Rules Panda at, which is now apparently at Joey can
Joey can
read
read
this.
this.
At Joey can read this. I love
Thank
you
you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
You
Thank
know,
you. First off,
you're the
thank you
fucking
for listening. Thank you specifically for listening. Um,
yes. I fucking love you. Thank you so much. Okay. So
I really
um
hope you stay after the credits for this.
please, yes. Okay, Rose Panda says, please review Last Night on Earth one day. Just for you, we absolutely will.
We will put Joey. Get it on the list.
It's gonna happen. If nothing else, it'll be a bonus episode. It's gonna happen. Oh my god, I'm so happy.
Yes, yes. Now we actually can
Oh
leave.
my god. There we go. All right, goodbye.
Bye.